Chapter 27-22. Huang Lin, the great Brahma domain of the 8 major heavens, an extremely luxurious spaceship, stopped near the old site of the Wunshui Palace. A group of people stood on the deck of the flying ship. The person in the lead was a man with a dignified expression, and an old man with a glowing face stood by his side. The dignified man was the third master of the Huangji clan, Huang Lin, who'd come to the 8 heavens from the Impermanence Pier. The old man standing by Huang Lin's side was the master of Impermanence Palace, Fu Qi. Third Prince Huang Zai's aura remains here. Moreover, the auras of Elder Bai and Elder Wu who followed Huang Zai are here as well. At the same time, I sense Zoda's aura not too far away. Huang Lin frowned slightly as he looked around the starry sky and spoke in a low voice. Fu Qi carefully looked along Huang Lin's gaze towards the surroundings, and then he said rather cautiously, "My lord, besides that, I sensed a strand of terrifying killing intent. This killing intent is extremely terrifying, and even I feel horrified by it." Fu Qi's heart shook slightly, especially when he sensed the surging killing intent in the surroundings. His expression was unsightly. The killing intent was too pure, and its destructive force was too great. He couldn't help but consider if he would be able to resist such a powerful killing intent. Huang Lin's expression was extremely solemn as well. He said in a low voice, "This killing intent is terrifying indeed. However, Huang Zai and the other 2 weren't killed by the owner of this killing intent. Instead, the killing intent is the densest where Zoda's aura is. Zoda probably died to this killing intent." "My lord, did you sense the murderer's aura?" asked Fu Qi. Huang Lin shook his head and said, "I'm guessing that the source of this killing intent is a ferocious object. Because its killing intent is too terrifying, it has concealed the murderer's aura. I can only vaguely sense a trace of its aura. It seems to be very weak, and it's merely at the extreme realm of life and death." Huang Lin couldn't help but shake his head and laugh when he spoke up to this point. He felt that it was absurd to come to such a conclusion, and he thought to himself that he'd probably been misled by this terrifying killing intent. Fu Qi couldn't help but laugh as well. Clearly, he didn't think that the murderer was at the extreme realm of life and death. After all, the extreme realm of life and death was an ant that could be casually crushed to death. How could such an ant have the strength to kill 4 Dao confirming powerhouses, including Zoda? This was simply impossible. Seems like the one who killed Huang Zai and Yuan Hui is the same person. Who is it that dared to disregard our Huangji clan and kill our people?" Huang Lin said angrily. In Huang Lin's opinion, Huang Zai's death didn't matter. After all, he was just a good-for-nothing with mediocre talent. His death wouldn't affect the Huangji aristocratic family at all. However, Zoda was the master of destiny and was already a cornerstone of the Huangji aristocratic family. In addition, Master Yuan Hui was a true array Dao expert. The death of these 2 people was definitely a huge loss to the Huangji aristocratic family. No matter who it was, Huang Lin had to find the culprit and make him pay with blood. Fu Qi said carefully, "My lord, the 8 heavens are not peaceful now. It is said that the leader of the demon race, Eastern Emperor Tai, has appeared and has already subdued 5 heavens. He has begun to integrate them into the demon realm. Moreover, Eastern Emperor Tai has a 9-story demon pagoda, which is filled with the corpses of great magi. These great magi were all 3rd step Dao, confirming mighty figures when they were alive. After death, their corpses were refined into corpse puppets. Although their strength can't be compared to when they were alive, their physical bodies are powerful. They are not comparable to ordinary 2nd step Dao confirming cultivators. Do you think the person who killed Master Yuan Hui and the others is from the demon realm?" Huang Lin's expression changed slightly. Huang Lin didn't know about the formation of the monster realm until he came to the 8 heavens, especially Dongwang Tai, who was an extremely ancient existence. He was an old monster who had survived in the brilliant era of the untainted heavenly realm. It might not be the demon realm. It might be more likely that it's an expert from the prehistoric heavenly realm. After all, Master Yuan Hui came to seal the passage to the prehistoric heavenly realm. However, for some reason, the seal of the passage was forcefully broken. Now, the living beings of the prehistoric heavenly realm have also occupied two heavens. The great Brahma heavenly realm is the last unoccupied heavenly realm. At this point, Huang Lin's eyes were filled with worry. Regardless of whether it was the demon race or the living beings of the prehistoric heavenly realm, they were actually incompatible with the human race. He was worried that the demon race would join forces with the prehistoric heavenly realm to attack the human race. If that was the case, he was worried that the human race would not be able to withstand the joint attack of the demon race and the prehistoric heavenly realm. Just as Huang Lin and Fu Qi were chatting casually, Huang Lin noticed that Fu Qi's expression was strange. His body was trembling slightly, as if he was forcefully suppressing the anger in his heart. "Palace Master Fu, what's wrong?" Huang Lin asked in surprise. Fu Qi took a deep breath and said solemnly, "Lord Huang Lin, the second successor of the Impermanence Palace that I personally appointed has been killed." Huang Lin was surprised. His gaze towards Fu Qi was tinged with a trace of pity. It had to be said that Fu Qi was very unlucky. The Impermanence Palace Master was the first successor that Fu Qi had personally appointed. He was also Fu Qi's biological son. He had been killed in the eight heavens. This news had already made Fu Qi so angry that he wanted to kill someone. However, now that Fu Qi had left the Impermanence Palace and come to the eight heavens, the second successor that he had personally appointed had also unfortunately been killed. The deaths of the two successors had dealt a huge blow to Fu Qi. "Palace Master Fu, do you know who killed your successor?" Huang Lin asked. "It's a young man in white. This young man has 3 primordial chaos-grade divine artifacts. Moreover, the strange thing is that this person is only the Heavenly Tao Master, but he's extremely powerful. He actually killed Ping Han with a single punch," Fu Qi said with a frown. After all, Fu Qi had left a trace of his primordial spirit in Ping Han's body. After Zhuowen destroyed his primordial spirit, he knew immediately. Moreover, through the connection of the primordial spirit, he knew everything that had happened. Moreover, this kid killed someone not far from the entrance of the Huangji clan's capital. "He's truly too detestable." Fu Qi spoke fiercely. Huang Lin's gaze was cold as well, and he said, "How arrogant. He actually dared to kill someone at the entrance of my Huangji clan. He doesn't take my Huangji clan seriously at all. Once we return, investigate this kid thoroughly. Once we capture him, we definitely won't let him off." Fu Qi was delighted and hurriedly bowed towards Huang Lin. He knew that Huang Lin was speaking to him. Since Huang Lin had spoken, then it meant that Huang Lin would represent the Huangji clan to interfere in this matter. With the help of the Huangji clan, Fu Qi knew that the white-clothed young man wouldn't be able to hide. "Thank you, Lord Huang Lin." Fu Qi hurriedly thanked him. Huang Lin waved his hand and said, "Your Impermanence Palace is a vassal of my Huangji clan after all. Since something has happened to your Impermanence Palace, then my Huangji clan will naturally not sit idly by. We'll return together once we've gathered all the auras. At that time, my Huangji clan will assist you in capturing the murderer." Chapter 27-23. A ruthless woman. After entering the capital of the Huangji clan, Zhuowen was dazzled by the prosperity of this gigantic city. It had to be said that the Huangji family was indeed willing to spend money. They were actually able to build such a huge city. Moreover, they had even set up such a flawless spirit formation outside the city. The streets inside were so spacious that they did not look like streets, but more like football fields. However, even such a large street was bustling with people. It was extremely lively and crowded. "Is that aura coming from there?" Zhuowen narrowed his eyes and cast his gaze to the front. He followed his senses and kept rushing forward at an extremely fast speed. He was very excited. His Panga's sacred body had been promoted to the peak of the 3-star level, and he increasingly felt that it would not be easy for him to promote his Panga's sacred body. especially now that he was promoting from the peak of the 3-star level to the 4-star level. He felt that no matter how many heavenly law origin crystals he used, he would not be able to successfully promote to the 4-star level. It was not a matter of the amount of energy, but a matter of the quality of the energy. After all, the 3-star level and the 4-star level were major realms apart. Zhuowen knew that if he wanted to successfully promote, he had to use the ancestral wizard venomous insects. The Panga's sacred body needed to be integrated with the 12 ancestral wizard venomous insects to finally achieve the perfect Panga's sacred body. Zhuowen's current Panga's sacred body was not complete. He had only integrated with the Zhurong venomous insect. If he wanted to integrate the perfect Panga's sacred body, he had to collect the remaining 11 ancestral wizard venomous insects. Now, Zhuowen actually sensed the aura of the ancestral wizard venomous insects in the capital of the Huangji clan. How could he not be excited and lose control of himself? After all, if he could get another ancestral wizard venomous insect, his Panga's sacred body could easily be promoted to the 4-star level. Zhuowen walked all the way along the street in front of him and finally came to the end. He stopped in front of a huge palace. The palace that appeared in front of Zhuowen covered a vast area, occupying 1/10 of the area of this huge city. From afar, it looked like a city within a city. Zhuowen also discovered that the surface of the inner city was also overflowing with light and color. The array formations and restrictions set up here were even more strict and terrifying than the outer city. Moreover, the security here was even tighter and denser. Powerful cultivators could be seen patrolling the surroundings. Moreover, Zhuowen's divine sense could sense that there were many cultivators with extremely powerful auras in the city. He was sure that these cultivators were all experts above the second step of Dao validation. Zhuowen took a step forward and was about to step into the inner city when he was immediately stopped by 2 cultivators at the city gate. Zhuowen looked at the 2 cultivators guarding the door in surprise, because he found that the 2 cultivators guarding the door were actually Primordial Chaos Lord. Even the gatekeepers were Lord Primordial Chaos. From this, one could see how huge the power within the city was. If you don't have the command token bestowed by the Huangji clan, then please wait. One of the guarding cultivators could be considered to be polite, and he stopped Zhuowen and spoke indifferently. Zhuowen stopped and looked at the bustling scene inside the city gate. He also calmed down. It seemed that the ancestral which Gu he sensed was inside the Huangji clan. Then why could she go in? Zhuowen suddenly pointed at a woman who had caught up from behind and asked indifferently. The woman was wearing a pale, yellow cheongsam with a pattern of 2 cross sabers on the chest of the cheongsam. There was a trace of arrogance on her pretty face. The woman obviously heard Zhuowen's question. She could not help but turn around and look at Zhuowen behind her with disdain. She sneered and ridiculed. "Who do you think you are? I'm a disciple of the Huangji clan. Who do you think you are? How dare you compare yourself to me?" Zhuowen just looked at the woman coldly. He could see from the attitude of the guards at the city gate that the woman should not have a high status in the Huangji clan. She was probably just the most ordinary disciple. Otherwise, the guards would definitely reveal a respectful expression. However, it was exactly the opposite. The guards seemed to be very calm and did not reveal any other unusual expressions when facing the woman. When the woman saw Zhuowen looking on coldly and indifferently, her arrogant expression instantly turned into anger. In the woman's eyes, the white-clothed young man before her was really too ordinary. Even the aura on his body was only that of the heavenly Tao master, which was a level lower than her. As for his status, it was different. This fellow was definitely a nobody. On the other hand, she was a disciple of the Huangji clan. Although she was only an ordinary disciple, at least she had the name of the Huangji clan. Outside the city, she was very glorious, and everyone praised and flattered her. However, this ordinary young man before her actually dared to look at her with such an expression. It really made her furious and extremely displeased. It was precisely because of the extreme displeasure in her heart that the woman could not help but want to teach Zhuowen a lesson. You don't know the immensity of heaven and earth. What qualifications do your dog eyes have to look at me? Cripple your own eyes right now, and I won't pursue the matter. After that, Scram, I'm annoyed just by looking at you." The woman did not give up. Zhuowen could not be bothered with the woman. Since the ancestral sorcerer's goo worm was inside the Huangji clan, it was definitely impossible for him to enter the Huangji clan and obtain the ancestral sorcerer's goo worm with his current cultivation. Now, he planned to leave the city within the city and consider a countermeasure before deciding whether to take the risk and enter the Huangji clan. When he thought of this, Zhuowen turned around and intended to leave. "Where are you going? I think you're just courting death. Since you're not crippling your own dog eyes, I'll help you. After that, I'll break your dog legs, you dog slave." When she saw that Zhuowen ignored her and turned around to leave, the woman was so angry that she trembled. She stomped her foot and actually charged towards Zhuowen and brazenly attacked him. The two guards at the city gate frowned slightly. They felt that the woman's unwillingness to give up was a little too much. However, they were only guards and had no right to interfere with the affairs of the Huangji clan's disciples. Moreover, Zhuowen was not related to them in any way. Naturally, they would not attack a young man that they did not know. Zhuowen's gaze was cold. This woman was really rude and unreasonable. Zhuowen, did not want to cause trouble, so he simply ignored this woman. This woman actually took the initiative to look for trouble and even said such ruthless words. She was looking for trouble. No matter how good Zhuowen's temper was, he was still a little angry in his heart. The woman's speed was extremely fast. In an instant, she was behind Zhuowen. Her right hand formed a palm and whizzed out. She directly blasted towards Zhuowen's back. At the same time, the woman's left index finger and middle finger separated. Like an eagle's claw, they stretched out from the back of Zhuowen's head and directly gouged out Zhuowen's eyeballs. She wanted to cripple Zhuowen's eyes. The woman's right leg was like a whip that shot towards Zhuowen's legs. She wanted to use this opportunity to completely cripple Zhuowen's legs. One had to admit that the woman was really ruthless. Chapter 27-24. Chen Zhuowen's eyes flashed with murderous intent when he saw the woman's move. He stopped in place and reached out with his right hand like a snake to wrap around the woman's hands. At the same time, he kicked his right leg to meet the woman's whip kick. Crack! Zhuowen's right hand wrapped around the woman's hands and tightened. He actually managed to bind the woman's hands. At the same time, his leg collided with the woman's whip leg. Immediately, the clear sound of bones breaking rang out. With a clear scream, the woman flew backward like a falling leaf. Her hands were twisted and almost crippled. The woman's right leg was the most miserable. After being hit by Zhuowen, it exploded into a cloud of blood and disappeared. Zhuowen didn't even look at the woman who had been crippled by him. He just turned around and left. Just now, he secretly used a part of the power of the Panga's sacred body to cripple the woman's hands and right leg. Unless he used a divine pill refined from a second-step Tao validation divine medicine, it would be very difficult for the woman's broken limbs to recover. This woman was just an ordinary disciple of the Huangji clan. It was impossible for the Huangji clan to take out such a precious thing to restore her body. Wait, you beat up someone from the Huangji clan. Are you going to leave just like that? The cultivators guarding the gate were completely stunned. They didn't expect that Zhuowen, who was only the heavenly Tao master, could easily cripple the woman. When they came back to their senses, they immediately called out to Zhuowen. "You want to avenge her?" Zhuowen turned around and looked at the two guards with extreme hostility. The two guards felt the aura that suddenly escaped from Zhuowen's body and their hearts trembled. The cultivator in front of them was only the heavenly Tao master, but at that moment, he gave them an unbearable sense of fear. Was this really a feeling that a heavenly Tao master could give off? Although they knew that the woman was in the wrong first, they couldn't ignore the fact that she was a disciple of the Huangji clan and had been crippled by an outsider in front of the Huangji clan. Fellow brother, you may have misunderstood. We are not here to avenge this woman. Rather, you should not have been so heavy-handed, one of the gatekeepers said solemnly. She was the one who wanted to cripple me. I was just defending myself. She deserved to be beaten up like this, Zhuowen said calmly. "Brother, please come with me to the Hall of Penal Law of the Huangji clan. I will report this matter to the elders of the Hall of Penal Law. At that time, the elders of the Hall of Penal Law will give you justice. However, if you leave now, regardless of whether you're in the wrong or not, the Huangji clan will still issue an arrest warrant for you. At that time, even if you are right, you will have no reason to say anything. The Huangji aristocratic family will indiscriminately capture you and kill you," the gatekeeper said rather sincerely. Zhuan's eyes flashed, and he agreed to the cultivator's suggestion. Of course, a large part of the reason why he agreed was because he wanted to enter the city within the city to take a look. He wanted to sense the location of the ancestral shaman goo. Perhaps he had a certain chance of obtaining the ancestral shaman goo. As long as he obtained the ancestral shaman goo and refined it, his Panga's sacred body would undergo a transformation and be promoted to a 4-star level. Once the Panga's sacred body was promoted to a 4-star level, Zhuan knew that there were not many people in the Huangji clan who could threaten his life. The only ones who could threaten him were those old monsters who had not appeared for a long time. These old monsters had been in seclusion all year round to pursue a more powerful realm. As long as Zhuan did not make too much trouble, they should not come out easily. Of course, even if they came out, Zhuan was not afraid. As long as he left the capital city, with the speed of the space-time roulette, even a third-step Dao validation cultivator might not be able to catch up with him. After Zhuan agreed, the gatekeeper heaved a sigh of relief, even though the white-robed young man before him was only a heavenly Dao master. Although the white-robed young man was only a white-robed young man, for some reason, he felt an extremely strong sense of crisis. After all, the woman was a Daoyuan master, but she had been crippled by this person with a single move. It could be seen that this person's strength was at least at the level of Hunyuan master. In fact, he did not want to casually fight against such an opponent. This matter had nothing to do with him, so it was naturally best to leave it to the Hall of Penal Law. "Brother, please follow me." The cultivator nodded gratefully at Zhuan, carried the woman on his shoulder, and led the way for Zhuan. "You're dead. How dare you hit me so hard? As long as you dare to enter the Hall of Penal Law, there will be no return. You'll definitely die." The woman grimaced in pain, but she did not faint in the end. Instead, she glared at Zhuan and kept cursing. She was in the right and did not spare him. "You can continue to talk, and I can continue to attack you. You choose." Zhuan was leisurely, but the killing intent in his eyes became more and more terrifying. The woman's heart trembled, and her face revealed an embarrassed expression, but she stopped cursing. Obviously, she was really afraid of Zhuan. The cultivator guarding the gate carried the woman and walked in front, while Zhuan walked behind. They passed through the city within the city, and their strange combination naturally attracted the attention of many passing cultivators, causing them to discuss animatedly. The woman's face was embarrassed. She saw many disciples she knew, and they were snickering not far away. This made the woman feel ashamed and angry, and her hatred for Zhuan deepened. In the process of walking to the Hall of Penal Law, Zhuan chatted with the gatekeeper, and he found out that the gatekeeper's name was Chun Fa. The woman who was crippled by him was called Chun Dan, and she was only an ordinary disciple of the Huangji family. She was considered to be at the bottom of the Huangji family. After knowing Chun Dan's identity, Zhuan was not worried about his situation. With Chun Fa speaking up for him, he felt that the Hall of Penal Law would still handle it impartially. When the time came, he would also have to look for traces of the ancestral, witch goo worm in the inner city. As he walked towards the Hall of Penal Law, Zhuan found that the aura of the ancestral witch goo worm was getting closer and closer to him. This made Zhuan very surprised. This meant that the ancestral witch goo worm he sensed was near the Hall of Penal Law. After a while, Chun Fa led Zhuan to the Hall of Penal Law. The color of the Hall of Penal Law's buildings was cold, and it emitted a serious and cold atmosphere. It gave people a cold feeling. "Chun Fa, why are you not guarding the door? What are you doing in the Hall of Penal Law?" A man dressed in black walked out of the Hall of Penal Law. When he saw Chun Fa walking towards him, he could not help but ask in surprise, Zhu Rong, is the elder of the Hall of Penal Law here? I have an urgent matter that requires his judgment. Chen Fa looked at the man in black in surprise. The man named Zhu Rong frowned and hesitated for a moment before saying, "The elder is not here. The Vice Hall Master is inside. You can go in and look for him." "The Vice Hall Master is inside?" Chen Fa frowned, and a hint of worry appeared in his eyes. "Since the elder is not here, then I'll wait first. I'll come back later." Chapter 27-25. Zhou Ling, hearing the cold voice from the Hall of Penal Law. Chen Fa's expression changed slightly. His eyes were cold, but he still respectfully cupped his hands towards the Hall of Penal Law and said, "Chen Fa greets the Vice Hall Master." Zhu Rong also hurriedly bowed and greeted the Deputy Hall Master. Then he lowered his head submissively and did not dare to breathe loudly. Zhuowen stood where he was and raised his head to look at the Hall of Penal Law. A middle-aged man with a round and oily face slowly walked out. This middle-aged man was so bloated that he was equivalent to two people. As he walked, he swayed as if he would fall forward at any time. The middle-aged man was very satisfied with Zhu Rong and Chen Fa's attitude. His narrowed eyes swept over them, and his gaze fell on Zhuowen, who was behind Chen Fa. We saw that Zhuowen was actually standing upright and did not bow like Chen Fa and Zhu Rong. He was displeased. He pointed at Zhuowen and said, "Which disciple of the Huangji clan are you? Why haven't I seen you before?" Chen Fa hurriedly said, "Vice Hall Master, this person isn't a disciple of my Huangji clan." Chen Fa, you've got guts. You actually dared to bring someone who isn't a disciple of my Huangji clan in. Do you think you're very amazing? Bring in any Tom, Dick, or Harry. The middle-aged man raised his voice a lot, like a loudspeaker. It was loud and piercing to the ears, and his words were also very unpleasant. Zhuowen looked on coldly from the side, while the female Chun Dan on Chen Fa's shoulder saw that the Vice Hall Master was targeting Zhuowen and immediately revealed a happy expression. She knew that the white-clothed youth in front of her had offended the Vice Hall Master. With the Vice Hall Master's vengeful personality, this fellow would definitely suffer. "Vice Hall Master, this person didn't distinguish between right and wrong. He stopped my daughter at the city gate. He wanted to molest me because of my beauty. I resisted, but he used despicable means to beat me up. This person is too much. Vice Hall Master, please help me." Chun Dan acted according to the situation. She hurriedly complained that she had been wronged and pushed all the blame and responsibility onto Zhuowen. Sure enough, when the middle-aged man saw the injuries on Chun Dan's body, his eyes became cold and gloomy. A murderous intent, like a storm, enveloped Zhuowen's entire body. Chun Fa felt a chill in his heart. He hurriedly cupped his fists and pleaded, "Deputy Hall Master, please calm down. This is a misunderstanding." It was Junior Marshal's sister Chandan who was unforgiving. She provoked Brother Zhuo first. Brother Zhuo was just defending himself. Chundan cried out in alarm and rushed to say, "Vice Hall Master, this Chun Fa isn't a good person either. He's harboring this kid, bending the law for personal gain, and helping outsiders. You must seek justice for me, your disciple." Chun Fa was anxious in his heart. He hurriedly said to Chun Dan, who was on his shoulder, "Shut up. Now you're actually twisting the truth. Do you believe that I won't tear your mouth apart?" Chun Dan didn't care about the anxious Chun Fa at all. She continued to complain about Zhuowen first. In any case, it was all kinds of slander. "If you say another word, I'll completely cripple you. I'll make you a cripple. You won't even be able to be a cultivator." Zhuowen was still calm. He looked at Chun Dan. Although his voice was calm, it contained a strong, murderous intent. Chun Dan shrunk her neck. She was a little scared. However, she quickly remembered that the Vice Hall Master was here. She didn't think it was a big deal. She continued, "How dare you? We're the Huangji aristocratic family. You're an outsider who dares to be so arrogant and even dare to threaten me. You're simply asking for death." Zhuowen didn't say anything else. He took a step forward. His right hand formed a claw and grabbed towards Chun Dan's neck. He wanted to lift her up. Bang! A terrifying force blasted out and blocked Zhuowen's claw. Zhuan frowned and involuntarily retreated more than 10 steps. Every step he took set off a terrifying force. This was him channeling the remaining force from his body to his feet. Zhuan raised his head and coldly looked at the rotund middle-aged man. Although this middle-aged man was round like a roly-poly toy, his strength wasn't weak. With Zhuan's divine sense, he could sense that this middle-aged man's cultivation should be a half-step heaven's mandate master. His strength was far above Chun Fa. Huh, he's actually fine. The middle-aged man looked at Zhuan, who was only retreating and didn't suffer any injuries. His voice was filled with surprise. He was a half-step heaven's mandate master, and the white-clothed youth in front of him was only a heavenly Tao master. The difference between the two was huge. This white-clothed youth actually blocked his attack and didn't seem to be injured. Chun Fa, Zhu Rong, and Chun Dan also looked at this scene in amazement. Among them, Chun Dan and Chun Fa were the most shocked. Obviously, Zhuan's strength was somewhat beyond their expectations. He's got some skill. However, the Vice-All Master is a half-step heaven's mandate master. When he gets serious, this arrogant guy will taste the bitter fruit. Chun Dan muttered. He thought that Zhuan was just lucky this time. You got guts. You actually dared to attack in front of me. Who do you think you are? The middle-aged man was somewhat angry and coldly said, "This woman is distorting the truth. I've already warned her. Unfortunately, she's still trying to smear my name. I'm not a saint. I won't allow this bitch to slander me as she pleases," said Zhuan indifferently. "Who are you calling a bitch?" Chun Dan yelled. Zhuan didn't pay attention to Chun Dan at all. Instead, he looked at the middle-aged man and said, "As the Vice-Hall Master of the Hall of Penal Law, you should enforce the law impartially and fairly. Unfortunately, I don't see how you handle things fairly. What qualifications do you have to be the Vice-Hall Master of the Hall of Penal Law? You're courting death. Do you really think that I won't dare to touch you just because Chun Fa brought you here? Die for me." The middle-aged man was furious. He attacked without holding back. The aura of a half-step heaven's mandate master burst out without holding back. "Vice-Hall Master, you're being unreasonable. This person didn't do anything wrong. You." Chun Fa's expression changed greatly. He threw the Chun Dan on his shoulder to the ground and blocked in front of Zhuan. He fiercely punched the middle-aged man. "Poochie!" Chun Fa groaned and spat out a mouthful of blood. His face was as pale as snow, and his forehead was covered in cold sweat. Zhuan retreated several dozen steps and caught Chun Fa's body. Sensing Chun Fa's extremely weak injuries, his eyes were somewhat cold. This Vice-Hall Master was simply too unreasonable. Not only did he not act impartially, but he also attacked without distinguishing between right and wrong. Zhuan took out a divine healing pill and fed it to Chun Fa. Chun Fa's injuries were suppressed, and Chun Fa's pale face regained some color. "Brother Chun, many thanks," Zhuan said gratefully. Chapter 27-26. Cripple Yu Chun Fa shook his head and said guiltily, "Brother Zhua, I've implicated you. If the elder of the Hall of Penal Law were here, he would definitely give you justice. The elder has always been meticulous and impartial." Chun Fa continued, "Brother Zhua, you should leave first. I'll help you block the Vice-Hall Master. This is my fault." Zhuan fell silent and shook his head. "No need. Also, this damn fatty won't let me go. Look around." Chun Fa was stunned. His face turned pale as he realized that the Hall of Penal Law had been surrounded by a group of black-clothed cultivators. They were all disciples of the Hall of Penal Law. Under the Vice-Hall Master's orders, they blocked the way out of the Hall of Penal Law. Chun Fa looked at the middle-aged man angrily and said, "Vice-Hall Master, aren't you going too far? It's our freedom to come and go. Are you planning to use force?" The middle-aged man said carelessly, "Chun Fa, I won't make things difficult for you. Leave this little bastard behind and get the hell out of here. I won't pursue the matter of you offending me today." "You," Chun Fa said angrily. The middle-aged man did not wait for Chun Fa to continue speaking. He took a step forward, and his right fist was like the wind as he suddenly punched out. A terrifying power exploded out and surged out waves of strength chi. It was like a spiral of strength chi, which looked extremely terrifying. Standing to the side, Zhu Rong's expression changed drastically. The middle-aged man's punch included Chun Fa. With the strength that the middle-aged man was displaying, even if Chun Fa didn't die, he would be half dead. Zhu Rong's eyes flashed with a trace of pity, but he didn't dare to step forward. Although he had a good relationship with Chun Fa, it wasn't to the point where he would risk his life for him. Chun Dan fell to the ground and grimaced in pain. However, after seeing the middle-aged man attack, she smiled happily and stared at the scene. She wanted to see how this white-clothed young man would be torn into pieces by the middle-aged man. Chun Fa struggled to stand up and stood in front of Zhuowen. He bitterly smiled and said to Zhuowen behind him, "Brother Zhua, this is my responsibility. Originally, this wouldn't have happened, but it happened because of me. I'm really sorry. However, Brother Zhua, you don't have to worry. Since this is my responsibility, I will bear it all as long as I'm still alive." Zhuowen looked at Chun Fa, who had a firm gaze in his eyes. He stretched out his right hand and patted Chun Fa's shoulder lightly as he said, "Brother Chun, thank you. Leave this damned fatty to me. I think it should be fine as long as I don't kill this fatty." As he spoke, Zhuowen had already stood in front of Chun Fa. His voice was indifferent, and the corners of his mouth were raised. His eyes were filled with a different kind of confidence. Chun Fa was stunned. He immediately stepped forward and tried to pull Zhuowen. Unfortunately, he was blocked by an invisible force and couldn't take a step forward. Chun Fa was shocked. This force was so strong that he couldn't even think of resisting. Was this the power of this white-clothed young man in front of him? How could he be so strong? Is he really the master of the heavenly law? How could he have such strong power? Chun Fa was absent-minded as he stared at the young man in front of him. He even forgot about the middle-aged man who was getting closer and closer. Zhuowen stood where he was and clenched his right hand into a fist. The power of the three-star Peak Pangu sacred body faintly burst out and gathered at his right fist. Then he suddenly punched out his right fist. It was ordinary, and there wasn't even any sound of the fist exploding. On the surface, it looked soft. Rumble. However, when this seemingly ordinary punch landed on the middle-aged man's fist, the crisp sound of bones cracking could be heard. Moreover, the sound of bones cracking could be heard continuously. Then, Zhu Rong, Chun Dan, Chun Fa, and the other disciples of the Hall of Penal Law were stunned to see that the middle-aged man's powerful punch had been neutralized. Then, the middle-aged man's right fist and right arm were twisted and bent like a tightened spring. Puff! Puff! A bloody mist gushed out, accompanied by the middle-aged man's miserable shriek. It was ear-piercing and shocking. The middle-aged man continued to scream. At the same time, he made a prompt decision to retreat. Unfortunately, Zhuowen had already taken a step forward and arrived in front of the middle-aged man. Once again, he threw a punch at the middle-aged man's chest. Poochie! The middle-aged man spat out a mouthful of blood as terrifying ripples appeared on his round body. This was because Zhuowen's power was far too terrifying. When it reached the middle-aged man's body, the fat on his body involuntarily trembled. This was to disperse the terrifying power from Zhuowen. What's going on? My eyes must be playing tricks on me. This guy actually injured the deputy hall master. Zhu Rong muttered to himself in disbelief. No one was more shocked than Chun Dan. Her mouth was wide open as she watched this scene. She was speechless for a long time. Chun Fa stuttered as he stuttered. "Brothers, you defeated the deputy hall master?" Zhuowen smiled slightly and did not answer. Instead, he took a step forward and unceremoniously stepped on the middle-aged man's oily head with his right foot, pressing it deeply into the ground. The middle-aged man's head was stepped on. He struggled and flailed his limbs, but he could not break free at all. He could only whimper and feel very sullen. "How dare you? Let go of the deputy hall master. Are you trying to rebel?" After the surrounding disciples of the Hall of Penal Law came to their senses, they all began to speak. However, None of them dared to step forward to test Zhuowen's strength. If you have the ability, then come and challenge me to a fight, Zhuowen taunted. Unfortunately, as soon as the words left Zhuowen's mouth, the disciples from the Hall of Beheadings and Executions dispersed. Not a single person dared to step forward to challenge him. Challenging the white-clothed youth in front of them was simply a joke. The Deputy Hall Master, a half-step Heavenswell Master, was easily defeated by this kid and even stepped on under his foot. They did not want to follow in their Deputy Hall Master's footsteps. That would be too humiliating. The middle-aged man also noticed that the disciples of the Hall of Penal Law had all fled. He was so angry that his whole body trembled. He wanted to curse out loud, but unfortunately, his face was facing down. With his face buried under Zhuowen's foot, he could not speak at all. All he could do was whimper. Zhuowen's right foot suddenly stomped on the back of the middle-aged man's head. His powerful physical strength erupted, and the middle-aged man trembled all over before completely fainting. After doing this, Zhuowen slowly walked over to Chundan, who had fallen to the ground not far away. What are you doing?" Chundan looked as if she had seen the plague. When she saw Zhuowen coming over, she quickly shrank back, her eyes filled with fear and dread. Chapter 27:27. The Elder of Penal Law, no. Spare me. I won't do it again. Chundan screamed and begged for mercy, hoping that Zhuowen would spare her. Unfortunately for her, Zhuowen was very cold. He walked up to Chundan and attacked her repeatedly, destroying her foundation. Chundan lay on the ground, her face ashen. Her foundation had been completely destroyed, and she was no different from a cripple. In the cruel world of cultivation, cripples had no dignity. She would no longer be accepted by the Huangji clan and would be driven out of the clan. After doing all this, Zhuowen stood up and stopped in his tracks. He noticed that even more cultivators were crowding around him. These were the helpers the disciples of the Hall of Penal Law had called over. "What's going on? Why is it so noisy?" Suddenly, a dignified voice interrupted the clamor of the crowd. The cultivators who were originally surrounding the law enforcement hall and eyeing Zhuowen covetously all involuntarily opened up a path. At the end of the path, an old man with shoulder-length white hair walked over. There were a few wrinkles on his face, but they only added to his dignified and weathered aura. The Elder of Penal Law. Everyone hurriedly clasped their hands in greeting, including Chun Fa and Zhuowen. Only Zhuowen stood in place, calmly looking at the old man and nodding slightly. He knew that this was the true master of the Hall of Penal Law, the Elder of Penal Law. The Elder of Penal Law's aura was incredibly strong, much stronger than Zoda's. He was probably at the peak of the Master of Destiny, only half a step away from breaking through to the Lord of Profound Secrets. The Elder of Penal Law glanced at Zhuowen. Although he didn't know what had happened, he knew that Zhuowen was standing on top of a rotund, middle-aged man, and Chundan was lying at his feet in a daze. Needless to say, everything that had happened here had something to do with this person. "Who are you? How dare you cause trouble in the Hall of Penal Law?" The Elder of Penal Law's expression was unsightly. He stared coldly at Zhuowen, his tone unfriendly. Chun Fa hurriedly went forward and explained everything that had happened to the Punishment Elder. After hearing all of this, the Elders of Beheadings and Executions sat there silently for a moment. Then he waved his hand and said to the surrounding cultivators, "All of you, disperse. This is a matter for the Hall of Beheadings and Executions. You people from the other halls shouldn't get involved." Hearing that, the surrounding cultivators dispersed, leaving only the disciples of the Hall of Beheadings behind. "You've caused enough trouble. Let Zhou Ling go," the disciplinary elder said rudely to Zhuowen. Zhuowen nodded and lifted his foot. He knew that the Zhou Ling that the disciplinary elder was talking about should be this damned fatty. The disciplinary elder came to Zhou Ling's side and squatted down to check on her. He discovered that other than her serious injuries, she was fine. Only then did his expression soften. "Disciplinary elder, you must seek justice for me. This man is vicious. He actually destroyed my foundation. You must kill him." Chun Dan hurriedly shouted when she saw the disciplinary elder. "Shut up!" The disciplinary elder snorted coldly. He looked at Chun Dan with an emotionless gaze. He knew what had happened, and knew that it was all because of this woman, so he didn't have a good impression of her. Chun Dan stood frozen in place, trembling. When she saw the look on the disciplinary elder's face, she knew that he wouldn't stand up for her. Thinking of this, Chun Dan felt a trace of regret. She shouldn't have been so unforgiving. In the end, her foundation was destroyed and her future was bleak. Zhu Rong, take Zhou Ling to the inner room and settle her down. The disciplinary elder arranged everything in an orderly manner. Zhu Rong obeyed and led the middle-aged man into the hall of beheadings. The disciplinary elder turned around and looked coldly at Zhuowen. Chun Fa may have stated the truth, and I know that this woman caused all of this, but you still made a mistake. Do you understand? We want disciplinary elder, Zhuowen asked calmly. Chun Fa looked nervously at the disciplinary elder. He wanted to plead for leniency, but under the disciplinary elder's stern gaze, he could only shut his mouth. The disciplinary elder's eyes flickered. After a moment of silence, he said, "If you agree to a condition of mine, I can let bygones be bygones." "What condition?" "If it's reasonable, I can agree," Zhuowen said seriously. The disciplinary elder looked at the white-clothed young man in front of him in surprise and nodded. "You have a good temperament. Although you are only a heavenly Tao master, your strength is so powerful. It seems that you have many secrets. However, no matter what secrets you have, it's your business. The condition I want you to agree to is to help my hall of beheadings win the High God Convention in half a month." Zhuowen was startled. Obviously, he didn't know much about the High God Convention that the disciplinary elder was talking about. Chun Fa, who was standing beside Zhuowen, quickly explained to Zhuowen what the High God Convention was. It didn't take long for Zhuowen to find out what the High God Convention was. Zhuowen's eyes shone with an unimaginable light when he realized the true meaning of the High God Convention. It was said that the High God Convention was held every 1,000 years by the Huangji clan. Every time, only the younger generation of the Huangji clan under the age of 1,000 would participate. The High God Convention was said to be a competition in the world of the Huangji clan's most precious treasure, the Sun-Moon Demon Mirror, to determine the ranking of the younger generation. Of course, the higher the ranking, the more generous the rewards. The Hall of Beheadings was only one of the hundreds of branches of the Huangji clan. Moreover, it was one of the weaker branches. The disciplinary elder wanted a disciple to get a good result in the High God Convention. At the very least, such a result would be very good. Although the reward wasn't much, at least the reputation of the Hall of Beheadings would be preserved. Unfortunately, the Hall of Beheadings talent had withered in recent years. The younger generation of the Hall of Beheadings disciples was very ordinary. There wasn't a candidate that could satisfy the disciplinary elder. The disciplinary elder knew that with the quality of the disciples of the Hall of Beheadings, there would only be cannon fodder for others if they participated in the High God Convention. Now he had found Zhuowen. Although Zhuowen wasn't a member of the Huangji clan, he wasn't a disciple of any other power either. He was just a rogue cultivator. The disciplinary elder could accept him as a disciple in name temporarily and give him the qualification to participate in the High God Convention. Although Zhuowen's cultivation wasn't very high, his strength was first class. After all, even Zhou Ling had been defeated by him. He could be considered an outstanding talent, even among the younger generation. This was the main reason why the disciplinary elder had taken a fancy to Zhuowen. The reason why Zhuowen was pleasantly surprised wasn't because of the High God Convention, but because of the Sun-Moon Demon Mirror that would appear in the convention. According to Chun Fa, the Sun-Moon Demon Mirror's artifact spirit was transformed from mysterious and powerful venomous insect. It was said that the venomous insect was closely related to the ancestral shaman of the primitive heaven domain. It was the family treasure of the Huangji clan. Zhuowen knew that the venomous insect that Chun Fa had mentioned should be the venomous insect of the ancestral shaman. In other words, The aura of the venomous insect that Zhuowen had sensed was very likely from the so-called Sun-Moon Demon Mirror of the Huangji clan. Chapter 27-28. Sun-Moon Demonic Mirror. Have you made up your mind? I can tell you now that it's an opportunity to participate in the High God competition. The Sun-Moon Demonic Mirror is the most precious treasure of the Huangji family. It contains abundant energy and has a 50% chance of advancing to the next realm. Even if you're unlucky and fail to advance, your cultivation will still increase a lot. I'm giving you this opportunity. You should cherish it. Seeing that Zhuowen was deep in thought, the law enforcement elder couldn't help but tell him about the benefits of the Sun-Moon Demonic Mirror. Zhuowen was amused. It seemed that the law enforcement elder was running out of candidates. Judging from his anxious look, he must want Zhuowen to represent the law enforcement hall in the High God competition. Since Zhuowen knew that the Sun-Moon Demonic Mirror contained the ancestral sorcerer of venomous insects, he had made up his mind to participate in the High God competition. If he had the chance, he planned to devour the ancestral sorcerer venomous insects in the Sun-Moon Demonic Mirror. He cultivated the Pangu sacred body, which was the origin of the 12 ancestral sorcerers. Even if Zhuowen's current strength was weak, he could still subdue the ancestral sorcerer of venomous insects with the aura of the Pangu sacred body. Since the law enforcement elder has said so, I can't refuse. Zhuowen nodded. When the law enforcement elder saw that Zhuowen had agreed, a smile bloomed on his face like a blooming chrysanthemum. At the same time, he heaved a sigh of relief. The strength of the white-clothed young man in front of him was not bad. Although his cultivation was low, he was able to defeat Zhou Ling as the Heavenly Dao Master. Obviously, he was not an ordinary person. He would definitely have a place in the High God competition. You are Zhuowen, right? This is the token of a registered disciple of the Hall of Penal Law. With this token, you can participate in the High God competition. Now that the High God competition is coming, you can stay in the Hall of Penal Law for the time being, the law enforcement elder said with a smile. Zhuowen nodded. His eyes flickered and he suddenly asked, Elder, I saw the third head of the Huangji family, Lord Huang Lin, leave in a hurry. Where's he going? Zhuowen asked this question on purpose. He knew that Huang Lin should have gone to the 8 heavens to investigate the cause of Huang, Zhe, and Master Yuan Hui's death. Although he had purposely erased his own aura after killing Master Yuan Hui and the others, he still felt that things were not that simple. After all, the Huangji aristocratic family was a Dao Palace-level force. They had many tricks up their sleeves. Perhaps they had some special methods to find out who the real culprit was. The law-enforcing elder was startled. Then he nodded and said, There is indeed such a thing. I heard that the third prince and his guards have died in the 8 heavens. Sir Huang Lin must have gone to the 8 heavens to investigate the murderer. Chun Fa suddenly said, Elder, I heard that Master Yuan Hui seemed to have met with a mishap. That's why the third master was alarmed. The law-enforcing elder sighed softly and said, Master Yuan Hui is an eternal level divine formation master. In our Huangji aristocratic family, his status is close to that of the third master. I really can't imagine that there is someone in the 8 heavens who can kill Master Yuan Hui. Chun Fa was silent. When the news of Master Yuan Hui's death came from the Huangji aristocratic family, it was like a heavy bomb had exploded and caused a huge uproar. Many people could not believe it. Zhuowen touched his nose. To be honest, he was the initiator of all this. If the law-enforcing elder and Chan Fa knew that the murderer who killed Master Yuan Hui and the third prince was standing right in front of them, who knew how they would feel. After the murderer killed the third prince and Master Yuan Hui, he must have erased all traces of the murder and escaped. Can the murderer be found in this way? Zhuowen pretended to be curious and asked. This was the question that Zhuowen wanted to ask the most. He wanted to know if the Huangji aristocratic family had the means to find the murderer after he had erased all traces. The law-enforcing elder sneered and said, The murderer who killed Master Yuan Hui and the third prince is someone that our Huangji aristocratic family must kill. Master Huanglin should have gone to the 8 heavens to collect the aura of the third prince and Master Yuanhui. No matter how strong the murderer is, even if he can erase all traces, there will still be some aura left from the battle. Master Huanglin will go to the 8 heavens to collect the aura of Master Yuanhui and the third prince and bring them back to integrate into the sun and moon demonic mirror. The sun and moon demonic mirror can trace the time and space according to the aura of the deceased. It can also show the scene of the deceased's death and leave behind the murderer's aura. By then, it will be clear who the murderer is. The law-enforcing elder sneered and continued. The murderer thought that he did it secretly, but in fact, he will be found very soon. By then, he will be wanted by the Huangji aristocratic family. Zhuan was shocked. He had not expected the sun and moon demonic mirror to be so powerful. It could trace the time and space, reconstruct the scene of the deceased's death, and leave behind the murderer's aura. That meant that when Master Huanglin returned, Zhuan's identity would be exposed. Moreover, he was in the Huangji aristocratic family. By then, he would not be able to escape. Thinking of this, Zhuan began to hesitate. His expression remained calm as he asked casually, "I wonder when Sir Huanglin will return." After all, the sun and moon demonic mirror is needed for the High God Convention. When Master Huanglin returns, will he be able to use the sun and moon demonic mirror to find the murderer? The law-enforcing elder shook his head and said, "Of course not. When Master Huanglin returns, I think the High God Convention will have already begun. If he wants to find the murderer, he will have to wait until the convention is over." Zhuan nodded and sighed in his heart. He was not willing to leave the Huangji aristocratic family now. After all, there was the ancestor sorcerer's venomous insect, which was a great opportunity for him. After all, if he obtained the ancestor sorcerer's venomous insect, Zhuan would have a great chance of advancing to the 4-star Pangu sacred body. By then, his strength would have a qualitative change. He did not want to miss such an opportunity. For this reason, it was absolutely worth it for Zhuan to take a little risk. "Zhuan, do you have any other questions?" the law-enforcing elder asked. Zhuan shook his head. The law-enforcing elder nodded and waved his sleeve. He asked Chun Fa to bring Zhuan into the Hall of Penal Law and arrange a good room for him. After the room was arranged, Chun Fa bid farewell to Zhuan. He still had to guard the door. After all, it was his duty. After Chun Fa left, Zhuan sat cross-legged in the room. He took out the Emperor Elixir Furnace and many divine herbs. He now planned to refine primordial Dao divine elixirs. He planned to use this half a month to improve his array skills. Chapter 27-29. Semi-finished Heavenly Fate Pill activating the Divine Flame. The Pill Emperor Turtle left the Pill Furnace and began to assist Zhuan in refining the divine pills. The Pill Emperor Turtle was working even harder than before. Of course, this fellow's appetite was also big, and it needed more divine pills. Heavenly Dao grade divine pills were no longer attractive to this fellow, and it urgently needed higher grade divine pills. Therefore, the Pill Emperor Turtle was so eager to cooperate with Zhuan when he decided to raise his alchemy level. Time passed slowly. Zhuan spent 5 days and failed dozens of times before successfully refining a batch of primordial Dao grade divine pills, advancing to a primordial Dao grade alchemist. Zhuan spent another 7 days and failed nearly 100 times before successfully refining a primordial Dao grade divine pill, advancing to a primordial Dao grade alchemist. After advancing to a primordial Dao grade alchemist, Zhuan stopped refining. Instead, he put away the Pill Emperor Furnace and opened the door. There were only 3 days left until the High God Convention. If Zhuan wanted to break through to the Heavenly Fate realm, he would need to fail even more divine pills and more time to successfully advance. Although Zhuan had a lot of divine herbs on him, he had consumed a lot of them in the past 12 days. In fact, the number of divine herbs on him had decreased sharply. Even Zhuan was heartbroken. He had to slow down. Walking out of the room, Zhuan sent a message to Chun Fa. Zhuan knew nothing about the city within the city where the Huangji family was located. Therefore, he could only rely on Chen Fa, who was a local. Zhuan didn't have to wait long before Chen Fa arrived at the door of Zhuan's room. Moreover, Zhuan knew that Chen Fa was also a member of the disciplinary hall, and he was highly regarded by the disciplinary elder. Among the many disciples of the disciplinary hall, Chen Fa was the disciple with the most potential. Because Chen Fa was highly regarded by the disciplinary elder, he was envied by the vice hall master and was often made difficult by vice hall master Zhou Ling previously. When Chen Fa met the deputy hall master, he knew that things weren't going well. Furthermore, the reason why Zhou Ling was targeting Zhuan was largely because of Chen Fa. As for Chen Fa, it was the disciplinary elder who had arranged for him to guard the city gate. He wanted him to train there for a period of time and see more experts coming in and out, increasing Chen Fa's knowledge. Brother Zhua, you've finally come out. Chen Fa's eyes lit up when he saw Zhuan. Zhuan smiled and took out a palm-sized jade bottle and handed it to Chen Fa. Seeing Chen Fa's puzzled expression, Zhuan explained, "There are 3 heavenly fate pills inside." "What? Heavenly fate pill?" Chen Fa cried out in shock and disbelief as he stared at Zhuan. However, Chen Fa was quickly interrupted by Zhuan. Zhuan continued, "This is indeed a heavenly fate pill, but it's a semi-finished product. Its effect is far inferior to a real heavenly fate pill. The so-called heavenly fate pill was a divine pill that could help a cultivator become a heavenly fate lord." After Zhuan became a primordial chaos alchemist, he immediately tried to refine the heavenly fate pill. There was no doubt that Zhuo 1 had failed, but there were still 12 heavens will pills in the cauldron. However, Zhuan found that even though 9 of them were trash, 3 of them were not real failures and were only half-finished products. These semi-finished products weren't trash pills. They also had powerful medicinal effects, but they couldn't be compared to a real heavenly fate pill. However, these semi-finished heavenly fate pills were extremely precious treasures for primordial chaos alchemists. The medicinal effects of the heavenly fate pill were too overwhelming. Ordinary primordial chaos alchemists couldn't bear the terrifying medicinal effects of a real heavenly fate pill. Only peak primordial chaos alchemists could barely bear the effects of the heavenly fate pill and absorb a portion of its medicinal effects to have a chance of becoming a heavenly fate lord. Of course, the heavenly fate pill was most suitable for half-step heaven's fate lords. Most half-step heaven's fate lords would definitely be able to become a heavenly fate lord after taking it. The semi-finished heavenly fate pill's effects were weaker and gentler than the real heavenly fate pill. It was most suitable for a primordial chaos alchemist to use. Zhuan gave the 3 semi-finished heavenly fate pills to Chen Fa. He believed that Chen Fa, who was only an early primordial chaos alchemist, could at least reach peak primordial chaos alchemist. If he was lucky, he could even reach the half-step heaven's fate lord realm. Brother Zhua, this is too precious. You will definitely need it in the future. You don't have to give it to me. Chen Fa was very excited, but also very rational. He pushed his hand away and refused. In his opinion, the heavenly fate pill was already an extremely precious item. Although it was only a semi-finished heavenly fate pill, it wasn't something a disciple of the disciplinary hall like him could normally obtain. Moreover, Zhuan's cultivation was lower than his. After becoming a primordial chaos alchemist, Zhuan would need this item more than him. Therefore, Chen Fa decisively refused. Zhuan smiled and pushed the jade bottle towards Chen Fa. "I refined this semi-finished heavenly fate pill, but it failed. If I need it in the future, I will refine it again. Thank you for taking care of me before, Brother Chen. This is just a small gift to show my respect." "Brother Zhua, you are a heavenly fate alchemist?" Chen Fa was stunned and immediately looked at Zhuan with excitement. Zhuan shook his head. "I'm not a Heaven's Mandate Great Alchemist. I'm only a chaotic Great Alchemist. If I was a Heaven's Mandate Great Alchemist, then my Heaven's Mandate pills wouldn't have failed." Brother Joie is too modest. If you were only a primordial chaos alchemist, it would be impossible for you to refine a semi-finished heavenly fate pill. It would definitely be a waste pill. However, you were able to refine a semi-finished heavenly fate pill. In fact, your level has already reached the level of a heavenly fate alchemist. Chun Fa said. Zhuowen was startled and revealed a thoughtful look. It seemed that he still didn't know much about the Xian Mi Heavenly Domain's alchemy level. The higher the level of an alchemist, the higher the grade of divine pills they could refine, but at the same time, the failure rate would also increase proportionally. A Heavenly Fate alchemist could refine a Heavenly Fate pill with a 30% success rate, which was already very impressive. However, most Heavenly Fate alchemists didn't even have a 30% success rate. Zhuowen, on the other hand, relied on the alchemy art in the mysterious alchemy book to achieve a terrifying success rate. His Heavenly Tao Divine pills had a 100% success rate, Primordial Tao Divine pills had a 90% success rate, and Primordial Chaos Master pill success rate had reached a terrifying 90% success rate. Moreover, although Zhuowen was only a Primordial Chaos alchemist, relying on the mysterious alchemy art, Zhuowen should have failed directly in refining the Heavenly Fate pill. However, he managed to refine 3 semi-finished Heavenly Fate pills. From this, it could be seen how much the mysterious alchemy art increased the success rate. At the same time, Zhuowen also knew how heaven-defying the mysterious alchemy art he mastered was for alchemists. If other alchemists knew that Zhuowen had such a powerful alchemy art, it would probably cause a lot of alchemists to be jealous. Of course, even if he didn't rely on the alchemy art, Zhuowen's success rate was still higher than ordinary alchemists. Seeing Zhuowen insist, Chen Fa didn't hesitate and thanked Zhuowen. However, his heart was filled with excitement. At the same time, his impression of Zhuowen increased greatly. Chapter 2730. Huang, by the way, Brother Joie, why did you send me a message this time? Chun Fa put away the jade bottle and looked at Zhuowen happily. Zhuowen said, Brother Chun, there are only 3 days left until the Yun God Assembly. I want to use these 3 days to get a good understanding of the city within the city. Also, where will the Yun God Assembly be held? Chun Fa chuckled and patted his chest. Brother Joie, you found the right person. I know the Huang Ji family city like the back of my hand. Come with me. Then, Chun Fa took Zhuowen for a stroll around the city within the city. Every time they arrived at a well-known place, Chun Fa would talk nonstop about the characteristics of the place and the places that Zhuowen should pay attention to. Finally, Chun Fa brought Zhuowen to the center of the city within the city. At the center of the city was an incomparably huge palace. Describing the palace as golden and dazzling might be a bit of an understatement, because the palace was simply too luxurious. This palace is the residence of the Huang Ji family's core members and high-level experts. It's the most luxurious place in the Huang Ji family. Chun Fa looked at the luxurious palace in front of him with undisguised envy in his eyes. In front of the palace, there was an extremely vast square. The extravagance of this square was almost on par with the palace behind it. It had almost everything. At this moment, the square was extremely lively and bustling. Zhuowen even saw many cultivators using their power to build all kinds of supports. It was similar to the stage on Earth in Zhuowen's previous life. Chun Fa pointed at the square and said to Zhuowen, Brother, the Yun God Assembly will be held in this square. Do you see the tower in the center of the square? Zhuowen followed Chun Fa's finger and looked at the tower in front of him. He found that there was a support at the top of the tower. This support should be used to fix something. This, Zhuowen was puzzled. The Sun-Moon Demon Mirror is placed at the top of the tower. When the time comes, the Great Master will use the Sun-Moon Demon Mirror and envelop the entire plaza with its power. It is said that the entire plaza will fall into a strange space-time. At that time, the Flourishing God Assembly will officially begin, Chun Fa said. Zhuowen nodded. His gaze fell on the bracket at the top of the tower, and a look of anticipation appeared on his face. Zhuo knew that the parasite he wanted was inside the sun and moon demon mirror. Once the High God Refinement Conference began, it would be the time for him, Zhuo, to explore and obtain the parasite. However, he also knew that the sun-moon demonic mirror was under the control of the first head of the Huangji clan after all. He had to do it secretly. Otherwise, if he was discovered, he, Zhuo, would really be unable to escape. Yo, isn't this the gatekeeper, Chun Fa? Why aren't you guarding your door? What are you doing here? Suddenly, an ear-piercing voice was heard. As soon as the voice fell, a burst of laughter came from the other side. Zhuo turned his head and saw a group of people coming from the east. The leader of the group was a young man with shoulder-length curly hair. The young man looked arrogant and insufferably arrogant. He was even more arrogant than Huang Zhe, the third prince of the Huangji clan. Huang Yi, why are you here? Chen Fa looked at the arrogant young man and couldn't help but frown slightly. Zhuo revealed a look of understanding. Chen Fa had already told him about the direct descendants of the Huangji clan. There were a total of 5 heirs of the Huangji clan. Among them, Huang Zhe, whom Zhuo had killed in the 8 heavens, was ranked 3rd among the 5 heirs. He was a hedonistic young master with a bad reputation. Moreover, his talent was not good. He was the heirs that the headmaster disliked the most. Huang Yi was the 2nd prince. His talent was mediocre, and his cultivation was only at the Dao Yuan master realm. Like Huang Zhe, he was just a good-for-nothing. Of course, among the 5 princes of the Huangji clan, Huang Zhe and Huang Yi were good-for-nothings with mediocre talent. However, the other 3 princes were first-class geniuses. In particular, the eldest prince, Huang Wuqi, was exceptionally talented. He had cultivated for less than 3,000 years and was already an eternal overlord. Moreover, it was said that Huang Wuqi had the potential to break through the eternal overlord realm and enter the 3rd step of Dao validation before the age of 5,000. He was highly regarded by the 3 great masters of the Huangji clan and was one of the top monstrous geniuses in the host region. As for Huang Yi, Chen Fa had already told Zhuo to be careful. Because Huang Yi and Chen Fa had some conflicts, he liked to make things difficult for Zhuo whenever they met. Now that Zhuo was walking with Chen Fa, he was afraid that he would attract Huang Yi's attention. Sure enough, after Chen Fa spoke, Huang Yi's gaze fell on Zhuo, and he kept sizing him up. When he discovered that Zhuo's aura was only that of a heavenly Dao master, his eyes revealed a trace of ridicule. Who is this trash? Why haven't I seen him before? Huang Yi sneered. Zhuo raised his eyebrows. He hadn't expected Huang Yi to call him trash. This was clearly an insult. In my opinion, you don't seem to be any better than me, right? Zhuo replied indifferently. This sentence seemed to have angered Huang Yi. Huang Yi stared coldly at Zhuo and said, "What did you say? Do you dare say it again in front of me?" Zhuo looked at Huang Yi calmly and said, "I said you aren't any better than me? If you say I'm trash, then you're trash too." Good, good, good. Huang Yi repeated the word good 3 times, but the murderous intent in his eyes was surging like a raging storm. Zhuo's eyes turned cold. He had only retorted, and Huang Yi wanted to kill him. Die! Huang Yi stretched out his right hand and grabbed at Zhuo without hesitation. It was obvious that he wanted to kill Zhuo with a single palm strike. He was a Dao Yuan master, so it was naturally easy for him to kill a heavenly Dao master with a single strike. Boom! Chen Fa stood in front of Zhuo and pushed Huang Yi back with a single palm strike. He said in a low voice, "Second prince, aren't you going too far? Brother Zhuo is my guest. Don't involve him in our conflict." Huang Yi's eyes narrowed, and he took a few steps back. He looked coldly at Chen Fa and said, "Chen Fa, this trash dared to insult me. I didn't kill his entire family and only killed him. That's already the greatest mercy I can give him. How dare you stand in front of me? Aren't you looking down on me too much?" Chen Fa snorted coldly. He still stood in front of Zhuo and stared coldly at Huang Yi. "Lu Qi, attack him. Blast Chun Fa away. Huang Yi ordered a man behind him. The man was silent. He took a step forward, and a surge of energy surged out of his body and poured onto Chun Fa like an avalanche. Chun Fa's expression changed slightly because he realized that the man's aura was extremely vast. He was actually an expert in the later stage of Hunyuan Master, and his cultivation was even higher than his. Chapter 2731. Huang Yi and Rage Bang. 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 Instantly, Chun Fa and the guard, Lu Qi, began to fight. A terrifying force erupted, spreading out like ripples in all directions, distorting space and shattering the void. Chun Fa was only at the early stage of Hunyuan Lord, which was slightly weaker than Lu Qi's cultivation. Therefore, Chun Fa was instantly at a disadvantage. However, it wouldn't be easy for Lu Qi to defeat Chun Fa. After all, Chun Fa wasn't some random Tom, Dick, or Harry. The commotion caused by Chun Fa and Lu Qi's battle attracted the attention of many cultivators in the square. That's Chun Fa from the Hall of Penal Law. The one fighting with him seems to be the second prince's bodyguard, Lu Qi. Why are the two of them fighting? Don't you know that Chun Fa has a conflict with the second prince? If Chun Fa wasn't valued by the Elder of Penal Law, the second prince would have cut him into pieces. With the Elder of Penal Law support, the second prince can only find trouble with Chun Fa. Look, the second prince is walking towards the white-clothed youth behind Chun Fa. The white-clothed youth is only a heavenly Tao master. It seems like he's going to suffer. Discussions broke out, but the direction of the discussion quickly changed. The focus of attention shifted from Chun Fa and Lu Qi to the white-clothed youth not far away. The white-clothed youth was very ordinary. His aura was only that of a heavenly Tao master. He was considered insignificant in the entire square and wasn't worth mentioning. But now, in front of the white-clothed youth, the second son of the Huangji clan, Huang Yi, was slowly walking over, and the direction he was walking towards just happened to be where the white-clothed youth was. The crowd wasn't blind. They could see the malicious intent on Huang Yi's face. They knew that the white-clothed youth was going to suffer. Huang Yi was going to personally teach the white-clothed youth a lesson. Huang Yi's status was the same as Huang Zai's. His position in the Huangji clan was actually quite awkward. The Huangji aristocratic family valued talent and strength more than bloodline. Although Huang Yi was a direct descendant, his innate talent was the same as Huang Zai's. Moreover, he was a hedonistic son who liked to stir up trouble. There were many talented disciples in the Huangji clan who did not think highly of Huang Yi. Of course, no matter how useless Huang Yi was, he was still a Tao origin master. It was easy for a Tao origin bishop to teach a heavenly Tao master a lesson. Therefore, the spectators all silently mourned for the white-clothed youth. Huang Yi's gaze was ferocious as he slowly walked towards Zhuowen with a sinister smile on his face. Huang Yi had an extremely strong sense of superiority in his heart. As far as he was concerned, he only needed to make a move, and this white-clothed young man before him would kneel and beg for mercy. Kneel down and lick my shoes clean. Then, raise your head and apologize to me. Huang Yi walked in front of Zhuowen and lifted his right foot. His cold eyes burst forth with a mocking light as he sneered. Zhuowen's gaze turned cold. This Huang Yi really did not know what was good for him. He, Zhuowen, did not intend to stir up trouble, but Huang Yi did not want to let him go. Did he really think that Zhuowen was easy to bully? Scram, Zhuowen said coldly and did not pay any more attention to Huang Yi. Huang Yi squinted his eyes and sneered. You're quite stubborn. However, I would like to see if you can still be so stubborn. As he spoke, Huang Yi's right hand formed into a claw and suddenly stretched out toward Zhuowen's neck. It was obvious that he wanted to grab Zhuowen like an eagle grabbing a chick. Many cultivators in the surroundings saw this scene and secretly shook their heads. They felt that this white-clothed youth did not know how to appreciate favors. He actually knew Huang Yi's identity and was still so stubborn. Wasn't he looking for trouble? Zhuowen sneered in his heart and casually threw out a punch. This punch was ordinary and looked like a punch thrown by a child. When Huang Yi saw that Zhuowen actually dared to throw out a punch, he could not help but laugh out loud. His eyes were filled with contempt and disdain. Crack! Suddenly, the crisp sound of bones cracking was heard. Immediately, the crowd looked at the scene in front of them in a daze. The moment Huang Yi's claw came into contact with the right fist of the white-clothed youth, it immediately twisted and bent. Then, the white-clothed youth's forearm, elbow, and even his arm were all twisted and broken into pieces. Bang! 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 A bloody mist erupted as Huang Yi's right hand was directly blasted into a bloody pulp. On the other hand, Zhuo Wen's ordinary punch was like a hot knife through butter. After annihilating Huang Yi's right arm, it smashed on his chest. Puff! Huang Yi spat out a mouthful of blood. His waist arched like a cooked prawn, and he was immediately sent flying. He was in a sorry state and crashed onto the ground. He kept twitching and struggling. The surrounding atmosphere suddenly became much colder. The crowd was shocked and did not dare to breathe loudly. They just stared blankly at the scene. Everyone was in disbelief. Although Huang Yi's talent was not good, he was still a Dao Yuan master. A Dao Yuan master was one realm higher than the Heaven Dao master. It was natural for a Dao Yuan master to crush the Heaven Dao master. But now Huang Yi, who was a Dao Yuan master, had been beaten up like a dead dog by the white-clothed youth, who was just a Heaven Dao master. This made everyone's jaws drop. What's going on? What just happened is really against common sense. The second prince was beaten up just like that. You're right. The second prince was really beaten up. Moreover, he was beaten up by the Heaven Dao master with just one punch. It seems that this white-clothed youth is a tough guy. He hid his strength well. However, this white-clothed youth is too ruthless. He actually beat up the second prince. You should know that this is the Huangji family. Not many people dare to beat up the direct descendant of a Huangji family. This is the worst thing that has happened in the past few years. The crowd was discussing animatedly. However, when they looked at Zhuowen, they were first shocked and then ridiculed him. Although Huang Yi was a good-for-nothing, he was still the second prince of the Huangji family. His status was not something an ordinary disciple could compare to. Even if it was indeed Huang Yi's mistake at the beginning, there really wasn't anyone in the Huangji clan who dared to be as heavy-handed as Zhuo Wen, directly destroying Huang Yi's right arm. Looking at the injury on Huang Yi's right arm, everyone knew that it would be difficult for his right arm to recover without the help of precious herbs. Chun Fa and Lu Qi, who were originally standing together aggressively, were also stunned when they saw this scene. Lu Qi threw a punch at Chun Fa and immediately swept to Huang Yi's side like a hurricane. He kowtowed repeatedly and said, "Second Prince, I did not protect you well. Please punish me." Huang Yi screamed in pain. His voice was like a pig facing a butcher's knife. It was extremely shrill and ear-piercing. "Lu Qi, you, kill him for me." Huang Yi's face was pale. Due to the intense pain, he was stuttering and trembling. Chapter 2732. Reminder from the Law Enforcement Patriarch. How dare you hurt the second prince? You must be tired of living. I will kill you today as an apology to the second prince. Lu Qi's eyes were cold as he struck out with his right palm. Surging energy rippled out and then condensed into an even more vast and terrifying energy wave at the center. The shape of this energy wave was somewhat similar to a palm. Soon after, this energy wave suddenly descended, instantly arriving above Zhuowen's head. Zhuowen's eyes were cold. Just as he was about to make a move, he narrowed his eyes and quietly withdrew his right hand. Then he stood calmly in place. Rumble. Just as the energy wave was about to hit Zhuowen's head, an even more powerful energy came from behind Zhuowen and finally hit the energy wave. Lu Qi's pupils constricted, and he involuntarily retreated backwards as a terrifying shockwave swept out. When Lu Qi came to a stop, there were two extremely deep marks on the ground in front of him. Those were the marks left by his feet because they could not bear the force of the impact. Pucci. Lu Qi froze in place, spitting out a mouthful of blood as he stared in horror at something behind Zhuowen. Behind Zhuowen, an old man in a loose robe slowly walked over. There were some wrinkles on the old man's face. His eyes were slightly downcast, but he exuded an even more profound and dignified aura. Elder of Law Enforcement. Lu Qi's face darkened as he recognized the old man. Second Prince Huang, he also revealed an expression of disbelief as he stared blankly at the elder. Shortly after, when he regained his senses, he hurriedly cried out, "Disciplinary elder, what do you mean by this? Lu Qi is my personal bodyguard. What are you trying to do by attacking my personal bodyguard?" The surrounding people were also discussing spiritedly. Many of them guessed that the law enforcement elder had taken action because of the white-clothed young man. After all, Lu Qi had attacked the white-clothed young man, and the law enforcement elder had acted coincidentally. The law enforcement elder was obviously helping the white-clothed young man. The law enforcement elder's eyes were calm. He glanced at Zhuowen before looking at Huang Yi again. Second Prince, this young man is a disciple of the Hall of Penal Law. I hope you can give me some face and not pursue this matter further. As soon as the law enforcement elder's words came out, the surrounding people were in an uproar. The law enforcement elder had always been impartial. His image of fairness and justice was deeply rooted in the hearts of the people. He had never been biased. But now the law enforcement elder, who had always been impartial, was openly siding with the white-clothed young man. Everyone couldn't help but wonder who the white-clothed young man was. He had actually provoked the law enforcement elder to openly side with him. Huang Yi's expression also turned ugly. Although he was the second prince, his status should be on par with the disciplinary elder. However, that wasn't the case. Huang Yi's talent was too weak, and he was only a profligate. Relying on the fact that he was a direct descendant, he was indeed able to intimidate others. However, compared to the elders of the Huangji family who possessed real power, his status was still much weaker. The law enforcement elder's words were above his. Since the former had spoken, he had to consider carefully. Second Prince, I won't let you suffer a loss. This is a golden spike pill. It can restore your right arm. Moreover, I will compensate you with 100,000 high-grade heavenly law origin crystals, said the law enforcement elder. Huang Yi's expression only improved when he saw the law enforcement elder's golden spike pill. The golden spike pill was a divine pill of mixed yuan level. It was extremely valuable. Moreover, it could completely restore the disability caused by heavenly law energy. The golden spike pill was perfect for Huang Yi's situation. Moreover, 100,000 high-grade heavenly law origin crystals was not a small sum. Even a prince like Huang, he could not take out so many high-grade heavenly law origin crystals in a short period of time. In a spurt of energy, the law enforcement elder immediately took out a spirit ring and handed it to Huang Yi. Second Prince, there are 100,000 high-grade heavenly law origin crystals in this spirit ring. As for the golden spike pill, I will send a disciple to give it to you after this. Huang Yi's expression improved. He took the spirit ring and checked it. After confirming that there were indeed 100,000 high-grade heavenly law origin crystals inside, he nodded and forced himself to stand up. Since the law enforcement elder has come forward to plead for mercy, I will spare your worthless life. Huang Yi coldly glanced at Zhuowen and continued. However, you can't escape punishment. Break one of your arms, and I won't pursue this matter any further. Zhuowen's gaze was calm. If you want one of my arms, you can come and take it yourself. What are you dawdling over there for? Huang Yi's expression changed slightly, and then he said angrily, "Dog that doesn't know how to appreciate favors. If it wasn't for the law-enforcing elder, I would have already gotten someone to tear you apart. How could I let you be so arrogant and despotic? Do you really think I'm afraid of you today?" Zhuowen smiled faintly. He didn't take Huang Yi seriously at all. Even if the law enforcement elder personally attacked Zhuowen, he wouldn't be afraid, let alone Huang Yi, who was only a Dao Yuan master. Zhuowen wouldn't necessarily be afraid. Zhuowen's disregard angered Huang Yi instantly. Just as Huang Yi was about to explode, The law enforcement elder hurriedly stepped forward to mediate. Only then did Huang Yi's anger subside slightly. "Little bastard, don't think that you'll be safe after escaping today. I'll let you off today for the sake of the law enforcement elder. But let me tell you, the law enforcement elder can protect you for a while, but do you think he can protect you forever?" After saying this, Huang Yi hurriedly left with Lu Qi. He, the second prince, was defeated by a nobody in one move. This was too humiliating. Since he couldn't deal with Zhuowen now, he naturally wouldn't stay here to embarrass himself. After Huang Yi left, the surrounding cultivators gradually dispersed as well. Elder Chen Fa hurriedly came before the law enforcement elder and said with a hint of shame. The law enforcement elder merely nodded at Chen Fa. Then, he looked at Zhuowen with a hint of sternness in his eyes. "Zhuowen, do you know how stupid you were just now? I know that you're strong, but you're just a person after all. This is the core area of the Huangji family, a Dao mansion-level force. Huang Yi is indeed no match for you. Even Huang Yi's personal guard, Lu Qi, is no match for you. However, Huang Yi is the second prince of the Huangji family. His status is far above yours. As long as Huang Yi gives the order, countless cultivators around here will be willing to work for him to kill you. If that really happens, your life will be in danger." The law enforcement elder spoke slowly, his voice filled with dissatisfaction. Chapter 2733. The High God Ascenguin said lazily, "Elder, there are some things I can compromise on, but when it comes to my principles, I won't back down. Especially when it comes to people like Huang Yi who provokes me. I'll beat them up one by one. I won't show any mercy." The enforcement elder gave Zhuowen a deep look and sighed. "Do as you wish. However, you have to be careful of Huang Yi. He will also be participating in the High God Assembly. Given his connections and methods, I'm afraid he'll be able to gather many powerful cultivators. When the time comes, he'll definitely make a move against you." Zhuowen nodded. He didn't care much about Huang Yi. In other words, Zhuowen didn't care about any of the younger generation participating in the High God Assembly. Zhuowen knew very well that his current strength far surpassed his peers. Although his aura was only that of the Heavenly Dao Master, his strength had already surpassed first-step Dao confirmation cultivators. Moreover, with the terrifying Ho-E Divine Arrow, Zhuowen even had the power to kill an eternal overlord. Since the High God Assembly was only for the younger generation of the Huangji clan under the age of 1,000, any cultivator of the younger generation who could reach the first stage of the second step of Dao confirmation, such as the Master Destiny, would be heaven-defying geniuses. As for a cultivator like the Heavenly Fate Lord, Zhuowen really didn't think much of him. The enforcement elder frowned slightly when he saw that Zhuowen didn't care. He didn't like Zhuowen's attitude. However, the enforcement elder felt helpless. After all, he had personally invited this hot potato to the High God Assembly. There's still 3 days before the High God Assembly. Don't wander around during these 3 days. Otherwise, you'll get into trouble again. The law enforcing elder instructed before he left the place. After this incident, Zhuowen and Chen Fa didn't have any desire to continue strolling around. They returned to the Hall of Beheadings to prepare for the High God Assembly in 3 days. When Zhuowen returned to his room, he activated the restriction and began to study alchemy and array Dao again. During this period of time, while he was improving his alchemy Dao, he did not lag behind in the aspect of array Dao either. Now, he was already a heavenly Dao array Dao master. Furthermore, he had obtained the array Dao inheritance left behind by Master Yuanhui. This had greatly inspired Zhuowen. Zhuowen now felt that he was not far from becoming a primordial Dao array master. In these 3 days, he continued to study the Dao of formations. Perhaps he might have a breakthrough. 3 days quickly flew by. Zhuowen, who was sitting cross-legged in a dark room, suddenly opened his eyes. Zhuowen's eyes shone with an unbearable light as a terrifying invisible ripple extended from his forehead. This ripple was not the energy of the heavenly Dao, but a kind of powerful spiritual energy. However, Zhuowen quickly retracted the power of this invisible ripple. It seems like I have successfully broken through to the primordial Dao, Array Dao Master. Master Yuan Hui's understanding of Array Dao is indeed extraordinary. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to break through so quickly, Zhuowen muttered to himself with a smile on his face. In these 3 days, Zhuowen had not only made a breakthrough in the Array Dao, but also in the Alchemy Dao. In these 3 days, Zhuowen had refined over a dozen furnaces of heavenly fate pills. Although he failed every time, the number of half-finished heavenly fate pills he could refine had increased. When Zhuowen's last batch of heavenly fate pills came out of the furnace, it was filled with half-finished heavenly fate pills. It could be said that Zhuowen's alchemy Dao was getting closer and closer to the heavenly fate realm. At the very least, Zhuowen could successfully refine half-finished heavenly fate pills. Dong dong dong. There was a knock on the door, followed by Chun Fa's voice. Zhuowen knew that Chun Fa had called him out. The Flourishing God Assembly was about to begin today. When he opened the door, Zhuowen saw Chun Fa standing respectfully behind the law enforcement elder. Behind the law enforcement elder were 5 disciples. These 5 disciples were 3 men and 2 women. Zhuowen was no stranger to these 5 disciples. They were all disciples of the Hall of Penal Law, and could be considered as the elite disciples of the Hall of Penal Law. They were also the representatives of the Hall of Penal Law to participate in the Flourishing God Assembly. Senior Brother Zhuo. When the 5 saw Zhuowen open the door, they respectfully cupped their hands and saluted. Zhuowen's strength had already been widely spread in the Hall of Penal Law when Zhuowen defeated Zhou Ling. Now, all the disciples in the Hall of Penal Law knew that the white-clothed youth from the Hall of Penal Law was very strong and had defeated Deputy Hall Master Zhou Ling of... What a rude guy. You actually made everyone wait for you. Your personality is still as arrogant and despotic as before. A neither cold nor cold voice sounded. Zhuowen turned his head and saw a bloated figure standing on the other side of the law enforcement elder. Wasn't this the Deputy Hall Master of the Hall of Penal Law, Zhou Ling, who had been knocked unconscious by Zhuowen? At this moment, Zhou Ling saw Zhuowen's gaze fall on him and immediately became nervous. The scene of him being beaten up by Zhuowen was still vivid in his mind. Zhuowen couldn't be bothered to pay attention to the clown Zhou Ling. Instead, he looked at Chun Fa on the other side and smiled. Congratulations, Brother Chun. You've successfully become a half-step Heaven's Will Master. At this moment, Chun Fa's smile was like a blooming chrysanthemum. It was extremely brilliant. He sincerely cupped his hands toward Zhuowen and said, Brother Zhuowen is too polite. If it weren't for your half-finished Heaven's Will pill, I wouldn't have been able to reach the half-step Heaven's Will realm in such a short time. When Chun Fa said this, the surroundings were in an uproar. Even a law enforcement elder looked at Zhuowen in surprise. Chun Fa's sudden promotion to half-step Heaven's Will Master caused an uproar in the Hall of Penal Law. All the disciples, and even the law enforcement elder, were guessing the specific reason why Chun Fa had become a half-step Heaven's Will Master. Now it seemed that it was because of the half-finished Heaven's Will pill that Zhuowen had given them. Zhuowen, you're really generous. The half-finished Heaven's Will pill should be quite useful to you. Giving it to Chun Fa like this is really good. The law enforcement elder said with a faint smile. Zhuowen only nodded and didn't say much. The half-finished Heaven's Will pill was personally refined by him. If he wanted it, it would be very easy for him to get it. All right, let's go to the plaza. Seeing that Zhuowen didn't want to say more, the law enforcement elder didn't intend to ask any more. He shouted and led the group out of the Hall of Penal Law. At this moment, the plaza was extremely lively. The crowd was like a dragon, bustling with activity. At this moment, the plaza was completely built. At the edge of the plaza, there was a tall railing. The surface of these railings was overflowing with colors and emitted an extremely powerful restrictive light. It was obvious that these railings weren't ordinary objects. They were probably formed by powerful restrictive spells. At this moment, The cultivators who came to the plaza were blocked outside by these railings. At the center of the plaza stood an extremely tall tower. At the top of this tower, there was a bracket. Zhuowen knew that this bracket should be where the Huangji family's supreme treasure, the Sun-Moon Demon Mirror, was placed. As soon as Zhuowen entered the plaza, he felt several gazes fall on him. Moreover, these gazes contained inexplicable hostility. Chapter 2734. Galaxy of Stars' second brother. Is this the audacious guy? At this moment, many figures had gathered around Huang Yi. One of them was a handsome young man with a unique temperament and a vast aura. He patted Huang Yi's shoulder, whose eyes were filled with killing intent, and smiled at Zhuowen. Originally, the people around Huang Yi were chatting happily, but after the young man spoke, everyone quieted down. Everyone looked at the young man with eyes full of awe. This extremely handsome young man was no stranger to everyone. He was the youngest heir of the Huangji family, the fifth heir of the Galaxy of Stars. Galaxy of Stars had only cultivated for 500 years and was already at the peak of Hunyuan Master. In the Huangji family, Galaxy of Stars cultivation speed was even more terrifying than that of Huangji family's #1 genius, Huang Wuqi. It should be known that Huang Wuqi was extremely talented and had cultivated to the peak of Hunyuan Master before he was 600 years old. Galaxy of Stars, on the other hand, was already at the peak of Hunyuan Master before he was 500 years old. This was even more amazing than Huang Wuqi back then. In terms of aptitude, Galaxy of Stars was definitely the strongest among the 5 heirs. Even Huang Wuqi was slightly inferior. However, Huang Wuqi had cultivated much longer than Galaxy of Stars and was the eldest son. Now that he was an eternal overlord, he already held a high position in the Huangji family. In terms of status, Galaxy of Stars was far inferior to Galaxy of Stars. Of course, everyone in the Huangji family knew that it was only a matter of time before Galaxy of Stars reached Huang Wuqi's current height. Moreover, what made them even more odd was that the 3 heads of the Huangji family and the popular Huang Wuqi loved Galaxy of Stars even more. Especially Huang Wuqi. When he had time, he would often take the time to guide Galaxy of Stars in his cultivation. In the Huangji family, only Galaxy of Stars could receive such treatment. When Huang Yi saw that it was Galaxy of Stars, his face immediately revealed a flattering smile. He didn't dare to treat this person in front of him as a younger brother. This was a true genius of the Huangji aristocratic family. His status was far above his, so he did not dare to slight him. Xinghe, you came at the right time. That person is the Zhuowen that I told you about. He is simply arrogant and doesn't put our crown prince in his eyes. Previously, he actually slapped my face ruthlessly. Huang Yi quickly said. Galaxy of Stars glanced at Huang Yi and curiously looked at Zhuowen. Second brother, this man is only the Heavenly Tao Master. I heard that your right hand was crippled by him. Galaxy of Stars' words were full of sarcasm, but Huang Yi didn't seem to hear the sarcasm in Galaxy of Stars' words. He still smiled and nodded repeatedly. Galaxy, he is too arrogant this time. After I was defeated, he spread the word that the crown princes are all trash. I was so angry that my right hand was crippled by him. Huang Yi sighed. Originally, Lu Qi wanted to take action. But the hateful thing is that the enforcement elder actually sided with this bastard. Galaxy, can you tolerate this? Galaxy of Stars smirked and glanced at Huang Yi. He could see that Huang Yi had a good plan, but he didn't intend to expose his lie. Instead, he said indifferently, this man is indeed very arrogant. From the looks of it, Elder of Enforcement is biased toward this kid, Yang Qi said. It seems he thinks he'll be able to achieve great results in the High God Assembly. Second brother, you're a piece of trash, but you were crippled by the Heavenly Tao Lord. If I am lucky enough to meet this guy in the High God Assembly, I will help you deal with him. After saying that, Galaxy of Stars lazily leaned on the side and looked at the tower in the center of the plaza. He was participating in the High God Assembly to become a Heaven's Will Master. His current realm was already very high. As long as he wanted to, he could become a half-step Heaven's Will Master at any time. However, he suppressed his realm and planned to break through to the Heaven's Will Master realm in one go during the High God Assembly. It should be known that the Sun-Moon demonic mirror was the most precious treasure of the Huangji clan. It contained the power of the ancestral shaman venomous insect. He was 80% confident that he could use the mirror's power to become a Heaven's Will Master. Huang Yi glanced at Galaxy of Stars lazily leaning on the wall, and his face turned gloomy. Originally, he wanted Galaxy of Stars to teach Zhuan a lesson. Unfortunately, Galaxy of Stars didn't care about his brotherly feelings. Huang Yi sighed inwardly. Galaxy of Stars had a cold temperament and looked down on his brothers. Even if he was beaten to death by Zhuan, this guy wouldn't even frown. This guy was a ruthless person who was willing to pay any price and use any means to obtain greater power. Since Galaxy of Stars couldn't be relied on, Huang Yi knew that he could only rely on himself to eliminate Zhuan. Huang Yi prepared a lot of backup plans for this flourishing god assembly. He had gathered a group of talented disciples from the Huang Ji family. Once the flourishing god assembly began, Huang Yi would immediately look for Zhuan, planning to kill him. Of course, Huang Yi had paid quite a price for this encirclement. After all, he wasn't like Galaxy of Stars. He didn't need to pay a price for many people to curry favor with him. Naturally, he needed to pay a certain amount of compensation for asking for help. Huang Yi's heart ached when he thought about how those geniuses had asked for an exorbitant price. At the same time, his hatred for Zhuan grew. If it weren't for this kid, he wouldn't have become a laughingstock. He also wouldn't have had to spend so much effort to win over others and pay such a huge price. When the High God Assembly starts, I must make this kid kneel before me and let him have a taste of humiliation. Huang Yi looked in Zhuan's direction and clenched his teeth, his hatred soaring to the sky. Zhuan completely ignored Huang Yi. Instead, he was looking at the handsome youth not far away. This handsome youth shouldn't be very old, but his aura was much stronger than Huang Yi's. He could definitely be considered a genius among the younger generation. Brother Zhua, that's the 5th prince of the Huangji clan, Galaxy of Stars. He's the most terrifying genius among the 5 princes. He's less than 500 years old, but he's already a peak primordial chaos master. Even the eldest prince, Huang Wuqi, wasn't as monstrous as him back then. Chen Fei, who was standing beside Zhuan, said softly when he saw Zhuan looking at Galaxy of Stars. Zhuan nodded. Chen Fei had told him a lot about the High God Assembly, especially about Galaxy of Stars. Chen Fei had mentioned him a lot. Although Galaxy of Stars was only a peak primordial chaos master, his combat strength was much stronger than his cultivation level. It was said that when Galaxy of Stars was at the peak of primordial chaos master, he had killed Destiny Master Almighty with his bare hands. This matter had caused a sensation in the host region. He was able to challenge and kill a mighty figure at the 2nd step of the Dao validation with his cultivation base at the 1st step of the Dao validation realm. Chapter 2735. Master of the Huangji family even in a Dao Palace level force. It was extremely rare for a genius to appear who could kill a Master of Heavens while who was an entire realm above him. Of course, the Dao Palace faction was a colossus, and there were still many prodigies like this. However, they were considered rare among the Dao Palace factions. The Galaxy of Stars even seemed to have attracted the attention of the 5 Dao Palace factions in the host territory. Of course, this was just attention. The Dao Palace faction's requirements for accepting disciples were abnormally high. Huang Wuqi was already crazy enough. It was said that Huang Wuqi had to be half a step into the 3rd step before he could have a chance of entering the Dao Palace faction. Of course, the harsh requirements of the Dao Palace faction were only for other factions. The requirements were much lower for local cultivators of the Dao Palace faction. After all, outsiders would always be outsiders. The Galaxy of Stars wasn't the only prodigy who had attracted the attention of the Dao Palace factions. There were also many prodigies in the host territory who had attracted the attention of the Dao Palace factions. There were even a few cases where the Dao Palace factions had accepted such prodigies before they had even proven their Dao, because they were so heaven-defying. This matter had a far-reaching impact in the host territory and was widely spread. Chun Fa sighed softly when he saw that Zhuowen didn't seem to care. He felt that Zhuowen was too confident in himself. Zhuowen had previously displayed a move and defeated Zhou Ling, the Vice Hall Master of the Disciplinary Hall. However, to the galaxy of stars, Zhou Ling was just an ant that could be killed with a flip of his hand. The galaxy of stars would probably be able to cripple Zhou Ling in one move. However, judging from Zhuowen's previous performance, he was still inferior to the galaxy of stars. Chen Fa was very smart. He knew that if he continued speaking, it would obviously show that he didn't have confidence in Zhuowen. This would only make Zhuowen unhappy. Oof. You only know how to cause trouble for the disciplinary hall. If it weren't for the disciplinary elder protecting you, you would probably have died at the second prince's hands, Zhou Ling said in an extremely displeased tone. Vice Hall Master Zhou, if you don't like it, then bring it on. Let's see who's the real deal. Don't be like a meddlesome woman, gossiping at the side. Zhuowen glanced at Zhou Ling indifferently and said without any trace of politeness. These words caused Chun Fa and the other disciples to secretly laugh. Although Zhou Ling was the Vice Hall Master of the Hall of Penal Laws, this fellow did not have much real ability. He was only able to become the Vice Hall Master of the Hall of Penal Laws because he was good at sucking up to the second prince. What's more, this guy liked to order people around, and the disciples of the Hall of Beheadings and Executions were no exception. That was why the disciples of the Hall of Beheadings and Executions didn't like the Vice Hall Master at all. Now that they saw Zhou Ling suffer a loss in front of Zhuowen, they all felt great satisfaction. Zhou Ling was furious as she glared at Zhuowen. However, she quietly retreated a few steps behind the disciplinary elder and looked at Zhuowen fearfully. He knew very well that although this white-clothed youth's aura was only that of a heavenly Dao master on the surface, his true strength was extremely terrifying. Having suffered a loss last time, Zhou Ling naturally did not dare to fight with Zhuowen again. Otherwise, wouldn't that be asking for a beating? If you don't dare, then shut your mouth. If you say another word, don't blame me for being merciless. Zhuowen sneered disdainfully. Zhou Ling trembled with anger, but did not dare to act out. He knew very well that this white-clothed youth before him would do as he said. If he fought here, then he would definitely end up like the Hall of Penal Laws, or even worse. After all, the Hall of Penal Laws was their own territory, and this place was under the watchful eyes of everyone. If he, the Vice Hall Master of the Hall of Penal Laws, was defeated by an unknown disciple here, he would really lose all face. Thinking of this, Zhou Ling no longer spoke. Instead, she snorted coldly and turned her face away. The disciplinary elder stood on the spot and turned a blind eye to the conflict between Zhuowen and Zhou Ling. Instead, he said indifferently, "When the Flourishing God Conference begins, the first master will activate the Sun-Moon demonic mirror. At that time, all you need to do is enter the fence by yourselves." "Elder, what are the rules of the Flourishing God Conference?" Zhuowen asked. "I'm not too sure about the specific rules of the Flourishing God Conference. When the first master appears, he will naturally explain. However, I'm guessing that it must be related to the Sun-Moon demonic mirror. For all of you who are participating in the Flourishing God Conference, it will only be beneficial and not harmful. Moreover, the participants this time are all disciples of the Huangji aristocratic family. The first head can't really let you all kill each other and won't make this gathering too extreme. Zhuowen, you don't have to worry about it." At this point, Elder of Law Enforcement glanced at Zhuowen with a meaningful look. Zhuowen nodded. He understood the disciplinary elder's meaning. Clearly, he was reminding Zhuowen not to worry too much about Huangyi. "This time, I hope everyone will work hard and obtain a good ranking for our Hall of Penal Law," the disciplinary elder said. Apart from Zhuowen, Chun Fa and the others responded excitedly to the disciplinary elder. After a while, the noisy square quieted down, which attracted the attention of Zhuowen and the others. At the front of the square, the gate of the magnificent palace slowly opened, and two stalwart figures walked out from within. Behind the two stalwart figures were more than 10 people, each of whom had an extremely strong aura. Zhuan looked at this group of people and narrowed his eyes. These more than 10 people were all supreme powerhouses in the second step of Tao validation, especially the two people in front. Their auras gave him a feeling that he could not see through them. Brother Chun, could these two fellows be the heads of the Huang Ji family? Zhuan asked Chun Fa, who was beside him. Chun Fa nodded. His gaze revealed reverence as he said, "Yes, one of them is the first master, the other is the second master, whereas the long-haired man behind the two masters is the eldest heir, Huang Wuqi, whereas the others are all the core higher-ups of the Huangji clan. Usually it is rare to see these higher-ups, but now they have all come out for the Flourishing God Conference. It can be seen that they attach great importance to this Flourishing God Conference." Hearing that, Zhuan's gaze fell on the two heads again. The leader was a handsome young man who looked to be only 15 years old. However, he had a bald head. At first glance, he looked very much like a pure and innocent young novice monk. The second master was a fat man who looked like a mountain of meat. The second master's obesity was much more terrifying than Zhou Ling's. Three Zhou spirits would probably only be on par with this second master. As for the first master, Huang Wuqi, behind the first master and second master, Huang Shan, his appearance was much more normal. His appearance was very ordinary, but his eyes shone with an extraordinary light. It could be seen that this person was not ordinary. Zhuan sensed that Huang Wuqi's aura was much stronger than Kong Shi's. If Huang Wuqi were to face Kong Shi, he would be able to easily defeat him. Zhuan heaved a sigh of relief when he did not see Huang Lin behind him. Chapter 2736. Entering the Sun-Moon demonic mirror, however, Zhuan was worried that Fu Qi would recognize him. After all, when he killed Ping Han, a trace of Fu Qi's primordial spirit had seen his face and sensed his aura. If Fu Qi also came to the square, it would be easy for him to recognize him. At that time, Fu Qi would definitely find trouble with him. Moreover, Huang Lin would also help him out for Fu Qi's sake. Now that Huang Lin had not returned, it was undoubtedly the best news for Zhuan. The great master, Huang Wu, walked to the front of the plaza. After exchanging some pleasantries, he said in a clear voice, "My Huang Ji family has a total of 108 halls. Every hall has its own position and its own genius. Today I, Huang Wu, would like to express my gratitude to all 108 halls for taking out the Sun-Moon demonic mirror to host the High God Assembly. In the High God Assembly, the stronger you are, the more benefits you will receive. If you want more benefits, you have to become stronger." Speaking until here, Huang Wu waved his sleeve. A ray of light shot out from his sleeve and landed on the tower in the center of the square. Immediately, a ray of dim light spread out. Then, everyone saw a boundary formed by the dim light in a radius of 300 feet around the center of the square. The boundary of the boundary happened to be the fence that had been set up around the square. The Sun-Moon demonic mirror's power can affect the surrounding space. Within this radius of 300 feet, there is an endless world. In this endless world, there are many broken mirror pieces. These mirror pieces are the demonic mirror avatars that the Sun-Moon demonic mirror had nurtured for tens of thousands of years. They contain the essence of the Sun-Moon demonic mirror. This demonic mirror avatar was broken by me, second brother, and third brother. The broken mirror pieces are not dangerous to you, but you still have to be careful. Although they're just mirror pieces, their offensive power is extremely terrifying. Once you subdue the mirror pieces, you can immediately absorb the essence of the mirror pieces and increase your cultivation. As for the benefits of the mirror pieces, I don't need to tell you. I'm sure all of you have heard about it from your hall masters. After the barrier was formed, Huang Wu placed his hands behind his back. Although his voice was very soft, it was exceptionally loud. It resounded in everyone's ears like an echo in an empty valley. Even the lazy galaxy of stars became spirited after hearing Huang Wu's words. Their eyes were full of passion. He was already very close to reaching the second step of Tao corroboration, and this time he wanted to obtain the opportunity to advance to the second step of Tao corroboration. Zhuan's eyes shone like lightning. The mirror of the sun-moon demonic mirror clone should contain the power of the ancestor wizard goo worms, which would bring unspeakable benefits to both his true body and his clone. The surrounding crowd was already in an uproar. They knew that the energy in the sun-moon demon mirror that could increase one's cultivation should be the fragment of the demon mirror. Of course, Zhuan thought deeper than the others. The three heads of the Huangji clan had joined forces to barely break the demon mirror clone. This showed that the sun-moon demon mirror was not simple, and its power was absolutely monstrous. However, at the same time, it also meant that the power within the sun-moon demon mirror was actually unable to be controlled by the three heads of the Huangji clan. Therefore, they would shatter the doppelgangers that the demon mirror gave birth to after a period of time. Their goal was to weaken the power of the demon mirror and make it easier to control. Thinking of this, Zhuan became even more restless. His purpose for participating in the High God Conference was very clear. It was to obtain the ancestor wizard goo worms. If the sun-moon demon mirror was completely under the control of Huangwu and the others, it would not be easy for him to obtain and absorb the ancestor wizard goo worms. Now that the sun-moon demon mirror was not completely under the control of Huangwu and the others, Zhuan still had a chance. Also, after you enter the endless world of the sun-moon demonic mirror, you can use any means you can think of to obtain it. Because the cultivators who die in the endless world will not truly die. Instead, they will be teleported out of the endless world. However, there's also a corresponding price to pay. That is, the energy of the mirror shards absorbed by the cultivators who died in the endless world will all be transferred to the winner's body. And for the next month, the winner will be in a weak state. Huangwu continued to speak, and the discussion below became much quieter. Many disciples were frowning. Obviously, Huangwu's rule was to let the cultivators who participated in the High God Conference kill each other. Fortunately, death in the endless world was not a true death. However, they would not be able to obtain any benefits and would be weakened for a month. This was definitely not good news for the cultivators who had a strong purpose. Then, I wish you all good luck. The High God Conference will last for a year. After a year, the Sun-Moon Demon Mirror will release the boundary. Huangwu smiled and waved his sleeve, opening more than 10 gaps in the fence around the square. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The moment the gaps appeared, some cultivators could not wait any longer. They flew out like a hurricane and entered the boundary. When Patriarch Law Enforcement said, "If you have the energy to spare, take care of the disciple from the Hall of Beheadings and Executions. If you don't, then forget about it. Make sure you can protect yourself and don't get eliminated." Zhuan found it funny. The enforcement elder was as calm as water at the beginning. Now that the High God Conference had begun, he became nervous. "Elder, don't worry. I will take care of the disciples of the Hall of Penal Law. Also, this time, I, Zhuan, will help your Hall of Penal Law win the first place," Zhuan said with a smile. "Hurry up and enter." The enforcement elder did not care about Zhuan's words. In his heart, he thought that Zhuan was just boasting. Zhuan did not explain. He did have the confidence, but there was no need to explain it to the enforcement elder. When the time came, it would be more effective for the enforcement elder to see. Zhuan walked in the front, while Chun Fa and the other 6 people followed closely behind Zhuan. They all knew that Zhuan was not simple. They wanted to follow Zhuan, hoping that they could stick together and survive this year. As soon as he entered the boundary, Zhuan saw the scenery in front of him quickly passing by. It was as if he, Zhuan, had flipped through an endless world and seen endless sceneries. In the end, Zhuan stood in the middle of a desolate desert. Above his head were 9 scorching suns, and above him were 9 huge suns. The heat emitted by each sun was extremely shocking. The golden desert under Zhuan's feet seemed to be unable to withstand the high temperature. Large areas of the desert were scorched black, Zhuan looked around and found that Chun Efei and the others were not behind him. In this desert, he stood alone. It seems that entering this endless world is random. Chapter 2737. Searching for the venomous wizard worm, however, Zhuan soon discovered that his divine sense was blocked by a powerful force, so his divine sense could only extend to a range of 100 meters. Zhuan's current divine sense was extremely powerful. It could extend as far as the entire Daffin domain, but it could only extend to a range of 100 meters here. Zhuan knew that there should be a powerful force shrouding the endless world. It was this force that repelled all other forces that entered this world. The endless world was simply too vast. To the endless world, 100 meters was simply a drop in the ocean. If he only relied on his divine sense to search for the sun-moon demonic mirror fragment, he did not know how long it would take. Moreover, Zhuan was now eager to know the location of the venomous wizard worm hidden in the sun-moon demonic mirror. After all, this venomous wizard worm was the key to whether his Panga's sacred body could successfully advance to the 4-star realm. Zhuan stopped on a small sand dune, withdrew his divine sense, closed his eyes, and began to sense with his own Zhurong venomous worm. The 12 ancestors of sorcery were natural enemies. Since he had the Zhurong venomous worm, he could naturally sense the other venomous wizard worm in the sun-moon demonic mirror. Zhuan opened his eyes. Soon after, he extended his right hand through the air, and a bright red flame appeared at the center of his palm. The flame looked like a venomous wizard worm. As soon as it appeared, it chose a direction and shot out. It was formed by a trace of the essence of the Zhurong venomous worm. It was like a clone of the Zhurong venomous worm, and was extremely sensitive to other venomous wizard worms. Zhuan followed closely behind the flame and swept out like an aurora. Zhuan had been traveling in this desert for 3 days and 3 nights, but he was still in the desert. This showed how vast this desert was. In the process of traveling, Zhuan also found that he did not meet many other practitioners who had entered the endless world. It should be known that there were at least thousands of practitioners who had entered the endless world. However, he had not met anyone after traveling for 3 days and 3 nights. This showed how vast the endless world was. Boom! After flying for 2 days and 2 nights, Zhuan saw the edge of the desert. At the edge of the desert was another landscape world. There was a lush green prairie, and its area was comparable to the desert. However, at the edge of the desert, a terrifying energy exploded, sweeping out a terrifying storm, instantly enveloping Zhuan's figure. Another fat sheep. Sure enough, guarding the borders of these 2 worlds was the best choice. In just 5 days, we've already reaped 2 rewards. A voice that was filled with wild joy was transmitted from under the sand. Immediately, a sand dune not far from the storm broke apart, and 2 men rushed out. Among them, the green-clothed man's voice was more arrogant. He looked at Zhuan, who was swept into the storm, and laughed loudly. His eyes were filled with joy. On the other hand, the white-clothed man beside the green-clothed man was much calmer. He shook his head and said, "The High God Convention has just begun. It's really not worth it for you to act so quickly. Some practitioners haven't even found the demon mirror fragment yet." The green-clothed man did not take it seriously and said, "We've been waiting here all this time. Now, we're just familiarizing ourselves with it and experimenting. When the time comes, we'll act again in a few months. Isn't it the same? All of this is to increase our chances of catching him." The white-clothed man did not answer. Instead, he looked at the storm and said, "Let's undo this formation first. After all, this is an origin grade formation. The practitioner who entered the formation just now was only a heavenly Tao master. I'm afraid he'll die without a doubt." The green-clothed man chuckled. Just as he was about to undo the formation, his pupils shrank as he discovered that the storm that seemed capable of reaching the heavens had collapsed in an instant, dispersing into dust. Amidst the dust, a young man in snow-white clothes slowly walked out. Zhuowen's eyes were like torches as he stared coldly at the stiffened green-clothed man and white-clothed man below him. He asked, "Did you guys deliberately set up this formation here?" The green-clothed man frowned slightly and did not answer Zhuowen's question. Instead, he asked rudely, "You're also a divine array master?" Zhuowen did not say anything else. Instead, he stretched out his right hand and punched at the green-clothed man. The green-clothed man was only a heavenly Tao master. How dare he deliberately set up a formation to kill him? Zhuowen was not so good-tempered that he would pretend that nothing had happened. Of course, since the green-clothed man and the white-clothed man were able to possess an origin grade formation, it was obvious that they were rich. How dare a mere heavenly Tao master attack me? You're courting death. The green-clothed man sneered. He also clenched his right hand into a fist and punched it out toward Zhuowen. Crack! Unfortunately, the green-clothed man's right fist was instantly smashed into a cloud of blood mist. Then, the green-clothed man screamed in agony as his entire body exploded into a cloud of blood mist. He could not be more dead than he was. The white-clothed man, who had been watching the show, was stunned. He could not believe what he had seen. The white-clothed young man, who was only a heavenly Tao master, had killed his companion in one move. What kind of strength did that require? Let's go. The white-clothed man realized that something was amiss. After he came to his senses, he immediately fled in the opposite direction at an extremely fast speed. Unfortunately, no matter how fast the white-clothed man was, could he be faster than Zhuowen? Not long after he had fled, the white-clothed man screamed in agony and followed in the footsteps of the green-clothed man. After killing the two men, Zhuowen discovered that there were 8 thumb-sized green lights that flew out from their bodies. These green lights contained something similar to mirror fragments. Zhuowen knew that these things should be the fragments of the Sun-Moon Demon Mirror avatar that Huangwu had mentioned before. At the moment when these 8 green lights entered his body, Zhuowen immediately felt that his cultivation in his body seemed to have improved a little. Although the improvement was negligible, it was enough to shock Zhuowen. It should be known that the difficulty of improving the cultivation of Zhuowen's original body was much more difficult than that of ordinary practitioners. No one knew that when he had been promoted to Heavenly Tao Master, he had used a pile of special-grade Heavenly Tao origin crystals to barely be promoted. Now, just by absorbing 8 fragments of the Sun-Moon Demon Mirror avatar, he could clearly feel the improvement of his cultivation. It could be seen that the energy contained in the Demon Mirror avatar was very beneficial to his cultivation. Thinking of the various benefits of these fragments, Zhuowen's heart was filled with enthusiasm. He knew that as long as there were enough fragments of the Sun-Moon Demon Mirror avatar, it should be more than enough for his original body to be promoted to Daoyuan Master. However, Zhuowen was not in a hurry to find the Demon Mirror avatar. Instead, he planned to use the Zhurong venomous insect to find the location of the ancestral wizard venomous insect hidden in the Sun-Moon Demon Mirror avatar. Chapter 2738. Shan Tianlongzhuan continued to move forward. What he didn't know was that in the endless world of the Sun-Moon demonic mirror, many cultivators were constantly searching for the demonic mirror fragments. At the same time, terrifying battles broke out all over the endless world as they fought for the demonic mirror fragments. However, everyone knew that these were just small skirmishes. The more time passed, the stronger the remaining cultivators would be. When the time came, it would be a real fierce battle. As long as one could kill the other, they would be able to obtain more energy and break through to a higher realm. In a lush forest, a handsome young man shot out like a cheetah and kicked the back of the head of a cultivator who was advancing. Bam! The cultivator was caught off guard and was kicked in the face. He fell to the ground, dead as can be. It's the 5th Prince, Galaxy of Stars. Let's run. The companions of the other 2 cultivators who were ambushed didn't expect that someone would suddenly attack them. By the time they realized it, their companions were already dead. When they saw the face of the person who ambushed them, they screamed and ran away immediately, not daring to have any thoughts of fighting. Galaxy of Stars was one of the seeded contestants of the High God Conference. They knew that they would definitely lose if they encountered such a person. Unfortunately, Huang Xinghe did not intend to let the two of them leave. With a leap, he flew through the air like a ghost. Two miserable shrieks were heard as the two of them were dealt with by Huang Xinghe alone. Galaxy of Stars stood on the spot, his eyes scarlet and filled with bloodlust. More than 10 green lights shot out from the corpses of the 3 cultivators and merged into his body. As expected of the Sun Moon demonic mirror, these demonic mirror fragments are really useful to me. As long as I get enough demonic mirror fragments, I won't have to worry about not being able to reach the second step. Huang Xinghe laughed heartily and disappeared from where he stood. He planned to continue searching for the demonic mirror fragments. Of course, he wouldn't show any mercy to the cultivators he met along the way. He would kill them and take the demonic mirror fragments from them. Fifth younger brother is really crazy. It seemed like there were only a few disciples among the participants of the High God competition who could restrain him. Once fifth younger brother successfully breaks through to the heavenly Fate Lord realm, I don't think any of the participants can compete with him. Not long after Galaxy of Stars left, a refined man slowly walked out from the depths of the forest. He looked like he was in his 30s. If there was someone here, they would be able to Lu e-translation. This was because he was Huang Ju, the 4th prince of the Huang Ji family. Huang Ju was an extremely low-profile person. Although his talent wasn't as good as Huang Xinghe's, he was still much stronger than ordinary geniuses. However, his scheming was much deeper than Huang Xinghe's. However, the crazier fifth brother is, the better it is for me. If there is a chance, fifth brother, don't blame me for not caring about our brotherhood. Huang Ju smiled as he muttered to himself. Outside the Sun-Moon demonic mirror, there was a huge square. Many cultivators were surrounding the fence, but their gazes were fixed on the barrier within the fence. Through the barrier, they discovered that the cultivators who entered the barrier were all involuntarily sitting cross-legged on the ground with their eyes closed, as if they had fallen into some kind of meditation. At the same time, some of the cultivators inside the barrier slowly opened their eyes, revealing a confused expression. However, before these cultivators could get up, a force that could topple mountains and overturn seas came crashing down. Then, these cultivators were involuntarily pushed out of the range of the fence. The faces of the hall masters of their respective halls turned ugly after they were pushed out. They knew that being pushed out of the Sun-Moon demonic mirror meant that the cultivators had been killed in the endless world of the Sun-Moon demonic mirror. They had been eliminated from the High God Conference. Among the eliminated cultivators, there were 2 that Zhuowen was familiar with. They were the green-clothed man and the white-clothed man that Zhuowen had killed with a single move. Who the hell is that guy? He's clearly the Heavenly Tao Master, so how could he use such a powerful force? The green-clothed man was still in a daze as he muttered to himself in disbelief. The white-clothed man smiled bitterly and said, "I'm not sure either. I've never heard of him in the Huangji clan. I've already investigated those powerful disciples, but he wasn't among them. It seems like I've overlooked his information." The green-clothed man and the white-clothed man exchanged glances. They could see the dispirited look in each other's eyes. At the same time, they could feel a sense of weakness in their bodies. They knew that this was the after effect of being killed in the endless world of the Sun-Moon demonic mirror. They would be so weak for the next month that it would affect their cultivation. This Sun-Moon demonic mirror is truly mysterious. It can actually seize a strand of a cultivator's soul and create an endless world within the mirror. Moreover, it can make the cultivator feel that the endless world is the same as the real world. Even the most powerful spatial artifact can't achieve this. The enforcement elder couldn't help but exclaim in admiration as he looked at the Sun-Moon demonic mirror. "Enforcement elder, what kind of trash did your Hall of Penal Law send this time? Even a Heavenly Tao Master was sent here." Is there no one else in your Hall of Penal Law? An ear-piercing voice rang out, causing the law enforcement elder to frown. The enforcement elder slowly turned his head and looked at the bearded man who was walking towards him. He said coldly, "Shan Tianlong, whether our Hall of Penal Law has people or not has nothing to do with your Hall of Rules. You're meddling too much." The bearded man named Shan Tianlong curled the corners of his mouth and said indifferently, "Your Hall of Penal Laws Chun Fa is pretty good. However, if he meets our Hall of Rules Lu Long, I think he'll only become an insignificant stepping stone." The enforcement elder didn't want to talk to Shan Tianlong anymore, so he simply closed his eyes and rested. The Hall of Rules had always been at odds with the Hall of Penal Law, especially Shan Tianlong. In his early years, Shan Tianlong had been defeated by the enforcement elder, so he had always regarded the enforcement elder as a thorn in his side. However, Shan Tianlong later lived in the mountains, and his cultivation even surpassed the enforcement elder. Moreover, the Hall of Rules he was in charge of had become one of the largest branches of the Huangji family. It was far superior to the Hall of Penal Law and had produced many talents. Shan Tianlong was very depressed because he was defeated by the enforcement elder in the past and regarded it as a disgrace. Therefore, every time Shan Tianlong met the enforcement elder, he would mock him, especially the juniors of the Hall of Penal Law that the enforcement elder was in charge of. Chapter 2739. A sudden, bet the law enforcement patriarch opened his eyes and looked coldly at Shan Tianlong. "Shan Tianlong, that's enough. I don't want to talk to you about the younger generation. After all, the results of the Flourishing God Assembly haven't come out yet. How can you be so sure that the disciples of my Hall of Penal Law are inferior to your Hall of Rules?" Shan Tianlong sneered. "You're quite confident this time. How about this? Let's make a bet. Let's bet on the ranking of our two halls. If one of us is ranked lower, that side will lose. How about it?" The law enforcement patriarch frowned and hesitated. The Hall of Rules was one of the top halls in the Huangji clan, especially Lu Long, who was less than 1,000 years old, but was also at the late stage of Lord Hunyuan. Although his cultivation couldn't be compared with the galaxy of stars, his strength couldn't be underestimated. He was a well-known genius of the Huangji clan. Chun Fa could be considered the strongest disciple of the Hall of Penal Law, but he was only at the early stage of Lord Hunyuan. Compared with Lu Long, there was a big gap. The law enforcement patriarch thought of Zhuowen and then looked at the complacent Shan Tianlong. He was silent for a moment and then said coldly, "Okay, I'll bet with you. But what are you going to bet with me?" Shan Tianlong looked at the law enforcement patriarch in surprise. Obviously, he didn't expect the law enforcement patriarch to agree so easily. 100,000 high-grade, heavenly law, origin crystals, or items of the same value. Shan Tianlong said indifferently. At this moment, Shan Tianlong and the law enforcement patriarch, who were at loggerheads with each other, had attracted the attention of the surrounding cultivators. Most of the cultivators were well aware of the grudge between Shan Tianlong and the law enforcement patriarch. Especially after Shan Tianlong proposed the bet, the surrounding cultivators were in an uproar. They subconsciously thought that the law enforcement patriarch would definitely not agree to the bet. After all, Lu Long of the Hall of Rules was much stronger than Chun Fa of the Hall of Penal Law. Moreover, the Hall of Penal Law had 5 or 6 disciples of Lord Primordial Chaos, while the Hall of Penal Law only had Chun Fa. There was a great disparity between the strength of the disciples sent by the two sides. No matter how one looked at it, this was a very unequal gambling fight. As long as the law-enforcing patriarch was not out of his mind, he would not agree. But to their surprise, the law enforcement patriarch was out of his mind and agreed to Shan Tianlong's bet. Many of the cultivators there secretly shook their heads. They felt that the enforcement elder was simply acting on impulse. Once all the disciples from the Hall of Justice were eliminated, he would likely regret it. 100,000 high-class, heavenly Tao origin crystals was no small number. Even Hall Masters like Shan Tianlong and the Enforcement Elder would find it very difficult to easily take out such a terrifying number of high-class, heavenly Tao origin crystals. Just when everyone thought that the law enforcement elder would hesitate, they didn't expect that the law enforcement elder would simply nod and agree. Shan Tianlong also didn't expect the law enforcement elder to agree so easily after learning of such a huge bet. However, Shan Tianlong didn't think too much about it. Instead, he laughed heartily and gave the law enforcement elder a thumbs up. Law enforcement elder, you are indeed a true man. You know that there are tigers on the mountain, yet you still insist on going there. It seems that I will be getting the 100,000 high-class, heavenly Tao origin crystals for free. The law enforcement elder didn't take it seriously and said, that may not be the case. Let's wait until the results are out first. At the same time, Huangji clan's upper echelons, including Huangwu, were standing silently on the stairs at the front of the square. Although the High God Convention would be held for nearly a year, which seemed like a long time, it was only the blink of an eye for these true cultivators. Wuji, I heard that a few months before the High God Convention, you have been guiding Xinghe since you came out of seclusion. What do you think Xinghe's ranking will be in the High God Convention this time? Huangwu's bald head was like a mirror as he smiled at the ordinary youth standing behind him. The youth's appearance was ordinary and unremarkable, but apart from Huangwu and Huangshan, the other upper echelons were filled with respect and didn't dare show the slightest disrespect. This ordinary youth was the Huangji clan's youngest eternal overlord. Moreover, he wasn't an ordinary eternal overlord, but a peerless genius with half a foot in the third step of Tao validation. Huang Wuji would step into the third step of Tao validation in the future and become the Huangji clan's second almighty. The third step was just around the corner. Once he successfully advanced, he would transform into a dragon and soar into the 9 heavens. His future was limitless. Huang Wu regarded Huang Wuqi with great importance. Otherwise, it would be impossible for him to consult Huang Wuqi on this matter. Huang Wuji cupped his hands at Huang Wu and said in a neither servile nor overbearing manner, First Master, Fifth Brother's talent is peerless. He is a true moldable talent. However, his wings aren't fully developed yet. He just lacks time. First Master, if you ask me what Xinghe's ranking will be, I think that if he is second, no one would dare to be first. All the disciples participating in the High God Convention are nothing in front of Xinghe. To put it bluntly, the High God Convention is Xinghe's stage. Even Lu Long from the Hall of Rules, Zhao Nianming from the Hall of Clouds, and Ku Tianqing from the Tianluo Hall can't compete with him. Huang Wuji's voice was very gentle, but it contained great confidence. This was his absolute confidence in Galaxy of Stars. Huang Wu and Huangshan both smiled. They didn't doubt Huang Wuji's words at all. It had to be said that the Huangji clan was extremely fortunate to have produced 2 great geniuses in their younger generation, Huang Wuji and Galaxy of Stars. They believed that the Huangji clan's power and influence would expand greatly in the next few thousand years. Especially if Huang Wuji could advance to the third step, the Huangji clan would be one of the best among the Dao palaces in the entire host region. There would be very few Dao palaces that could compete with them. Moreover, Xinghe should be able to successfully reach the second step this time. His cultivation base should be able to rise to at least the Master of Destiny. If his luck is good, his cultivation base will soar and reach the Master of Profound Secrets. Huang Wuqi added. Huang Wu, Huangshan, and the other higher-ups were moved. If what Huang Wuji said was true, then Galaxy of Stars was indeed too abnormal. They didn't doubt that Galaxy of Stars could reach the second step with the help of the Sun-Moon demonic mirror and become the Heavens Will Master. However, to soar 2 realms and become the Heavens Will Master was too abnormal. If Galaxy of Stars could really soar 2 realms, then he would be worthy of being the number 1 genius of the Huangji clan. Even Huang Wuji would be overshadowed. Wuji's analysis is reasonable, but plans can't keep up with changes. It's already very good that Galaxy of Stars can advance to the Heavens Will Master level. As for the Heavens Will Master, it will depend on his own fortune. We'll just wait and see, Huang Wu said modestly, but his face was full of joy. There was no trace of modesty in his expression. Chapter 2740. Sun, Moon, Mountain. 5 days later, Zhuan put away the flames, and his gaze fell on the incomparably huge mountain in front of him. The surface of the mountain was bare, but there were all kinds of complicated patterns on the dark surface of the mountain. Zhuan could not understand these patterns at all. He vaguely felt that these patterns should be some kind of seal mark that even he could not understand. The clone of the Zhurong venomous insect stopped in front of this mountain. Does this mean that the venomous insect of the Sun-Moon demon mirror is hidden in this mountain? Zhuan murmured to himself, but his eyes were full of passion as he looked at the mountain in front of him. The venomous insect was right in front of him, as if it was at his fingertips. It also meant that his Pangu's sacred body would advance to the 4-star level and complete the final transformation. However, after Zhuan calmed down, he did not make a move. Instead, he looked at the complicated patterns on the mountain and fell in a deep thought. These patterns were too complicated, and the surface of the patterns flashed with red light, giving Zhuan an extremely dangerous feeling. He knew that it would be inappropriate for him to rashly go up. This is the Sun-Moon Mountain, the origin of the Sun-Moon Demon Mirror. It is the core energy source of the Sun-Moon Demon Mirror. It is said that the venomous insect of the Sun-Moon Demon Mirror is sealed in this origin. An indifferent voice came and attracted Zhuan's attention. Zhuan looked up and saw a man slowly walking out of the rock wall on the east side of the mountain. The man was about 30 years old and exuded the elegant temperament of a scholar. At this moment, he was looking at Zhuan with a smile. "You are?" Zhuan looked at the elegant man in front of him in confusion. The elegant man was stunned. Obviously, he did not expect that Zhuan did not know him. However, he quickly returned to normal and said with a smile, "My name is Huangju. I'm also ranked 4th among the direct descendants of the Huangji family. People usually call me the 4th prince." Zhuan narrowed his eyes. After hearing Huangju's name, he was no longer interested in talking to him. Zhuan knew what the princes of the Huangji aristocratic family were like. He didn't want to have too much involvement with them. Furthermore, Zhuan had taught the second prince, Huang, a lesson in front of everyone. The other princes would definitely be unhappy and would think that it was a slap to their prince's face. If he were to meet the other princes, Zhuan had no intention of speaking nicely to them. Huangju also saw Zhuan's lack of interest in him, so he smiled and said, "I've heard of you. You seem to be called Zhuan. You're the first one who dares to hit my second brother in public in the Huangji clan. I'm very interested in you." Zhuan shrugged and did not plan to pay attention to Huangju. Instead, he focused on observing the Sun-Moon Mountain in front of him. He was thinking about how to release the ancestral, which goo worm, in the Sun-Moon Mountain. As long as he could come into contact with the ancestral, which goo worm, Zhuan was confident that he could refine it for his own use with his Pangu sacred body. However, the Sun-Moon Mountain was currently the biggest obstacle that prevented him from coming into contact with the ancestral, which goo worm. Huangju saw that Zhuan had no intention of paying attention to him. His eyes were a little gloomy, but he quickly returned to normal. "I can see that you're very interested in this Sun-Moon Yao Mountain. However, I think that you shouldn't even dream of opening it. This Sun-Moon Yao Mountain has been sealed by my Huangji family for generations. Even if a creator were to come, he would have to return empty-handed," Huangju said indifferently. Zhuan was shocked. The creator was the first of the 3 realms of the 3rd step of Dao validation. He was considered a true almighty. Even the creator could not do anything about the seal on the Sun-Moon Mountain, so it was naturally impossible for Zhuan to break it. His Pangu sacred body was too low, let alone his original body. Although Zhuan had a terrifying trump card like Ho Yi's Divine Arrow, in Zhuan's opinion, Ho Yi's Divine Arrow could only kill an eternal overlord at most. When it came to a terrifying almighty at the level of the creator, Zhuan was not confident that the Ho Yi's Divine Arrow would have an effect on an expert at the level of the creator. Since even the creator could not do anything about the Sun-Moon Mountain, Ho Yi's Divine Arrow might not be able to break it open. However, it's not impossible to open the Sun Moon Mountain. Huang Ju observed Zhuowen's expression. When he saw that Zhuowen was frowning, he knew that the latter was very interested in the ancestral, which gu worm, in the Sun Moon Mountain. "Oh, you have a way to open the Sun Moon Mountain?" Zhuowen looked at Huang Ju and asked. Huang Ju looked at Zhuowen strangely and said, "You are from the Hall of Penal Law, right? Didn't your law enforcement elder tell you the process and details of the Flourishing God Convention?" Zhuowen shook his head and did not explain. In fact, the law enforcement elder had given him a jade slip that recorded the rules and details of the Flourishing God Convention. Because Zhuowen was busy with his seclusion, he had given the jade slip to Chun Fa. After he came out of seclusion, he had forgotten about it. Therefore, even though the Flourishing God Convention had begun, Zhuowen still did not know much about it. Huang Ju didn't mind it too much and continued. "Actually, I'm sure you know the rules of the Delicate God Convention. The purpose of this convention is to collect the fragments of the Sun-Moon demonic mirror and use them to improve your cultivation base. You will also have to fight with other cultivators over the fragments. Moreover, the more fragments you collect, the stronger you will be. The Sun-Moon demonic mirror will also rank the cultivators who have collected the most fragments. It's said that when the battle royale of the High God Assembly reaches the end and there is only one person left, he will force all the fragments out of his body and put them on the peak of this mountain. The seal will be released for a quarter of an hour, and the ancestral shaman parasite sealed inside will appear. The ancestral witch-goo worm that appears will emit an extremely pure energy that can be directly imbued into the cultivator and help him to improve his cultivation. Of course, the imbuement of the ancestral witch-goo worm can only last for a quarter of an hour. If it exceeds that time, the ancestral witch-goo worm will go out of control. At that time, if you're not careful, you may lose your life. When he spoke up to here, Huang Ju glanced at Zhuowen with interest and continued, "Brother Zhua, from the looks of it, you seem to have come for the ancestral shaman parasite's blessing, right? The imbuement of the ancestral witch-goo worm is indeed a good thing. However, you must have the corresponding strength. I'm afraid you will not be able to do it." At this point, Huang Ju shook his head. Obviously, he felt that Zhuowen's cultivation was too low. The possibility of him surviving until the end in this endless world was too small. However, he did not underestimate Zhuowen. This person was only a heavenly Dao master, but he was able to defeat Huang, a Dao Yuan master. His strength was somewhat terrifying, and he was not a simple person. In Huang Ju's estimation, Zhuowen's strength was between the peak of Dao Yuan master and the early stage of Hun Yuan master. In his opinion, Zhuowen was a companion worth roping in. After all, in his opinion, Zhuowen's development potential was better than the other Dao Yuan masters and Hun Yuan masters. A mere heavenly Dao master could easily defeat a Dao Yuan master. If this guy was promoted to Dao Yuan master, he would not be weaker than a late-stage Hun Yuan master, or even a peak Hun Yuan master. Chapter 2741. An invitation from Huang Ju. Zhuowen suddenly realized that if he wanted to get in touch with the ancestral sorcerer's venomous insect, he would have to win first place in the High God Assembly. Zhuowen didn't care about the ranking of the High God Assembly. In his opinion, the participants of the High God Assembly were all from the younger generation. Even the galaxy of stars, who had extraordinary talents, was nothing in Zhuowen's eyes. This was because he knew that it wouldn't be difficult for him to kill the galaxy of stars. After all, his Panga's sacred body had already reached the peak of the 3-star level. He could easily defeat any ordinary master of destiny. "Thank you very much." Zhuowen cupped his hands toward Huang Ju. He didn't want to have any more contact with Huang Ju and was about to leave. However, Huang Ju obviously didn't want to let Zhuowen leave just like that. He blocked Zhuowen's path. Zhuowen frowned and looked at Huang Ju, who was blocking his path, and said coldly, "Brother Huang Ju, what is the meaning of this?" Huang Ju smiled and didn't mind Zhuowen's rude tone. He said with a faint smile, "Brother Joie, you don't have to be so wary of me. To be honest, we don't have any conflicts of interest. We can cooperate." Zhuowen sneered and said sarcastically, "Huang Yi is your second brother. I crippled his right hand in front of everyone. Don't you have any grudges?" Huang Ju smiled disdainfully and said, "Huang is only my second brother in name. He's actually just a good-for-nothing with poor talent. Most of his cultivation was boosted by divine herbs. It's basically impossible for him to advance to a higher realm in the future. In terms of status, he is far inferior to me. Moreover, among the 5 of us, other than the eldest heir, Huang Wuqi, who is the first master's son, the other 4 are only the first master's adopted sons and are not related by blood. Huang Yi's talent isn't good enough. Sooner or later, he will step down from his position as heir. I don't even care about this kind of trash, and I won't offend a genius like you for this kind of trash." When Huang Ju said that Huang Yi was trash, her voice was full of righteousness, without the slightest bit of guilt. Of course, Zhuowen was not worried about this. Regardless of whether the relationship between Huang Ju and Huang Ju was really good, he did not intend to cooperate with Huang Ju. He could see that Huang Ju was very scheming. If he cooperated with such a person, it would be easy to fall into his hands. Of course, with Zhuowen's strength, no matter how scheming Huang Ju was, it wouldn't affect Zhuowen much. In the face of absolute strength, all schemes and tricks were just paper tigers. "Brother Huang Ju, I'm used to being alone. I'm not used to working with others, so I'll take my leave now. See you later." Zhuowen was too lazy to waste his breath on Huang Ju, so he cupped his fists and disappeared like a gust of wind. Huang Ju was stunned on the spot, and his face suddenly turned green and white. In the end, he calmed down, but deep in his eyes, there was a strong killing intent. "Ungrateful bastard. If I see you again, I'll make you regret your rude behavior this time." Huang Ju's eyes were cold, and he didn't deliberately chase after Zhuowen. The High God Conference would last for a whole year, and it had just begun. Most of the cultivators would not choose to fight to the death. Instead, they would tacitly agree to collect the demonic mirror fragments to increase their cultivation. In the middle and later stages of the High God Conference, the conflicts between the cultivators would become more and more intense due to the lack of demonic mirror fragments. At that time, the battles between the cultivators would become extremely fierce. At that time, the real battle royale would begin. Every cultivator would want to kill the others and obtain the energy of the demonic mirror fragments from them to become stronger. But now, the process of collecting the demonic mirror fragments was relatively peaceful. After all, people like the galaxy of stars, who killed without caring about the occasion and didn't care about the unspoken rules, were in the minority. Zhuowen kept moving forward. This time, he used the power of the Panga banner to spread his divine sense to a distance of 10,000 feet. He went deep into the ground and soon found more than 10 demonic mirror fragments under his feet. If other cultivators knew that Zhuowen's divine sense could extend to a distance of 10,000 feet, they would definitely vomit blood and cry out that it was unfair. Due to a strange force in the infinite world that could block divine sense, most cultivators could only extend their divine sense to a distance of a dozen meters. Some were even worse and could only extend their divine sense to a distance of a few meters. It was already very impressive to be able to extend their divine sense to a distance of 10 meters. Perhaps no one in the infinite world could extend their divine sense to a distance of 10,000 feet like Zhuowen. Most of the demonic mirror fragments were buried 10 meters below the ground or even 100 meters deep. Most cultivators' divine sense couldn't reach that deep. Therefore, many cultivators first guessed a place and then began to dig a hole. As they continued to dig, their divine sense could get closer to the demonic mirror fragments underground. Cultivators who were lucky would be able to find some demonic mirror fragments in one go. As for those who were unlucky, they might not be able to find a single demonic mirror fragment even after a few days of hard work. However, Zhuowen didn't need to do that. His divine sense had a range of 10,000 feet. Basically, wherever he flew past, he could clearly detect whether there were any demonic mirror fragments in the depths of the ground. He didn't need to waste time digging to confirm. Soon, Zhuan found another piece of ground. After digging a few hundred meters into the ground, he found more than 70 demon mirror fragments. The energy of the demonic mirror fragments was very easy to absorb. Zhuan didn't even need to refine them. He only needed to hold the fragments, and he could continuously transfer the energy from the fragments into his body and convert it into energy in his body. On average, Zhuan only needed 3 breaths of time to absorb each fragment. Zhuan's speed of finding the demonic mirror fragments was really fast. On average, he could find hundreds to thousands of fragments in a day. He absorbed all the energy in these fragments. Zhuan's cultivation level was also steadily increasing. However, Zhuan felt helpless because his physique was too special. In the past half a month, he had collected nearly 10,000 demonic mirror fragments and absorbed all of them. He could clearly feel that his cultivation level had indeed increased. However, he realized that he was still a long way from breaking through to the Daoyuan Master Realm. If it were other cultivators, they would have broken through to the Daoyuan Master Realm or even reached the peak of the Daoyuan Master Realm after absorbing so much energy from the demonic mirror fragments. However, Zhuan still hadn't reached the threshold of the Daoyuan Master Realm. I'm really a bottomless pit. The amount of resources I need to advance to the Daoyuan Master Realm is 1,000 times more than other cultivators, Zhuan muttered to himself in a self-deprecating manner. Just as Zhuan was lamenting about his strange physique, he suddenly stopped and landed on the ground. The world Zhuan was in was filled with endless rocks. Apart from rocks, there was nothing else in this world. It was a real world of rocks. Just now, he had casually scanned the ground beneath his feet and realized that this underground world was unusual. Chapter 2742. A huge discovery. The ground under his feet was very deep. Zhuan spent quite some time and only found sporadic demon mirror fragments. However, Zhuan knew that this underground was not simple. It was purely a feeling. Moreover, his divine sense had not reached its limit, so Zhuan continued to push his divine sense deeper. Finally, at a depth of nearly 10,000 feet below his feet, which was the limit of Zhuan's divine sense, he saw a scene that shocked him. In his divine sense, there were piles of demon mirror fragments at a depth of 10,000 feet below the ground. Just on the surface that Zhuan scanned, there were close to 10,000 demon mirror fragments. There were even more demon mirror fragments in places that his divine sense could not reach. If it was not for the fact that Zhuan's divine sense was not long enough, he believed that he could scan more demon mirror fragments. There was no doubt that there was a huge reserve of demon mirror fragments at a depth of 10,000 feet below his feet. He estimated that there were at least 50,000 demon mirror fragments, or even more. If he could obtain so many demon mirror fragments, Zhuan knew that his original body might be able to advance to Daoyuan Master. I have to dig out all of these demon mirror fragments. Zhuan's eyes were burning with passion as he began to dig the ground. As this was a world of rocks, even the ground was covered with rocks. Moreover, these rocks were not ordinary rocks. Even if Zhuan used the heavenly Tao's divine power to condense a shovel, he had to use all his strength to dig a few feet into the ground under his feet. With Zhuan's current digging speed, it would take at least 3 months or even longer to dig to a depth of 10,000 feet below the ground. It was precisely because this world of rocks was different from the ground of other worlds that there were very few cultivators who searched for and dug out demon mirror fragments in this world. Even if there were cultivators who passed by, they would take a detour and leave when they realized that the ground of this world of rocks was so difficult to dig out. In particular, when some cultivators saw that Zhuan was digging alone there seriously, they would basically secretly laugh at him and leave as a joke. Zhuowen paid no attention to the cultivators who passed by and mocked him. Time flew by, and 2 months went by in the blink of an eye. Zhuowen had already dug a distance of over 900 zhang. As for the cultivators in the infinite worlds, most of them had more or less gained something. Some lucky cultivators had obtained a considerable amount of demon mirror fragments. After absorbing their energy, their cultivation had improved greatly and made a breakthrough. Among them, the most famous was the Galaxy of Stars. It was said that the Galaxy of Stars had already become a half-step Destiny Master and was extremely close to becoming a Destiny Master. Of course, from the moment the Galaxy of Stars entered this infinite world, they started a massacre. The Galaxy of Stars did not spare any of the cultivators they encountered along the way and killed them all. Therefore, most of the eliminated cultivators in the square outside the Sun-Moon demonic mirror were basically thanks to the Galaxy of Stars. It was also because of this that the Galaxy of Stars was infamous in the infinite worlds. Most cultivators were unwilling to encounter the Galaxy of Stars. Even if some cultivators accidentally encountered the Galaxy of Stars, the first thing they did was immediately run for their lives. Before the Galaxy of Stars could get close, those cultivators had already fled without a trace. In addition to the Galaxy of Stars, Zhao Yinming of the Yinyan Hall, Ku Tianlong of the Tianluo Hall, and Lu Long of the Law Hall had also performed very fiercely. It was said that these three people had also gained a lot and had all become half-step Destiny Masters. However, although these three people's cultivation levels were the same as the Galaxy of Stars, none of them dared to take the initiative to provoke the Galaxy of Stars. The Galaxy of Stars was a true genius. When he was at the peak of Primordial Chaos Master, he had once defeated a Destiny Master. Now that he had become a half-step Destiny Master, his strength must be even more terrifying. The combat strength of the Galaxy of Stars could not be measured by cultivation levels. Zhao Yinming, Ku Tianlong, and Lu Long were considered geniuses. However, even if they had become half-step Destiny Masters, they would only have a 50% chance of defeating an ordinary Destiny Master. They simply could not reach the level of the Galaxy of Stars. Therefore, even if their cultivation levels were the same as the Galaxy of Stars, none of them were willing to face the Galaxy of Stars. Huang Zhu's talent was also terrifying, but this guy was too low-key. Basically, he rarely heard any sensational news. However, he still could not be underestimated. Second Prince, isn't that the Zhuowen you've been talking about? This guy is actually digging in this rock world. Is this guy an idiot? A group of people swept over from the rock world. Among them, a young woman in a red dress saw the figure of Zhuowen who was digging up the demonic mirror fragments and recognized Zhuowen. In front of this group of people was the extremely handsome Huang Yi. At this moment, Huang Yi followed the woman's finger and saw Zhuowen's back. His eyes revealed a trace of coldness and malevolence. I've traveled far and wide to no avail. I was just about to look for that bastard. I didn't expect to meet this bastard like this. Huang Yi sneered. There must be something wrong with this guy's head. The ground of this rocky world is the hardest in the infinite worlds. Even a peak cultivator like Lord Primordial would have a hard time digging it out. Yet this guy is still digging and digging so deep. The woman in the red dress looked at Zhuowen, who was still digging in the distance, as if she was looking an idiot. She knew very well how hard the ground of this rock world was. If she were to dig, it would take her 4 to 5 months to dig a 10,000 feet deep hole. Thinking that this guy spent so much time digging such a big hole, not only did the woman in the red dress find it unbelievable, but Huang Yi and the others also found it funny. There's indeed something wrong with this bastard's brain. Let's see just how much of an idiot this bastard is. Huang Yi was not in a hurry to find trouble with Zhuowen. Instead, he stopped not far away and looked down at Zhuowen with his arms crossed in front of his chest. Zhuowen had already seen Huang Yi and the group of people. He sneered in his heart, but did not pay attention to this group of clowns. Huang Yi brought a group of 8 people. The strongest among them should be an early-stage Hunyuan master, while the rest were peak Daoyuan masters. Such a lineup could be said to be magnificent and powerful. Ordinary cultivators would not dare to provoke them. However, in Zhuowen's eyes, they were simply clowns. Zhuowen did not bother to pay attention to these people. His heart was burning because he was about to dig 10,000 feet into the ground. Ding! Suddenly, there was a crisp sound. Then, Zhuowen wiped off the loose soil under his feet, and a surge of energy rushed towards him. Zhuowen was too familiar with this energy. It was the energy aura of the demon mirror fragments. Zhuowen waved his sleeve and began to collect the demon mirror fragments crazily. Those are demon mirror fragments? How can there be so many demon mirror fragments? Chapter 2743. Snatched by 4 Second Prince. There are so many demonic mirror fragments 1,000 zhang underground. I estimate that there are at least tens of thousands of them. With so many demonic mirror fragments, we can all cultivate to the peak of Hunyuan Master if we divide them evenly. The woman in red was the first to come back to her senses. Her beautiful eyes were filled with passion and greed as she quickly said to Huang Yi. She was still sober and knew that the person in charge was Huang Yi. Naturally, she could not be the first to take action. She should wait for Huang Yi's order. Not only the woman in red, but the rest of the people around Huang Yi were also looking at Huang Yi. Clearly, they could not wait any longer. Haha, this bastard is really lucky. After digging for a few months like an idiot, he really dug out a treasure. Let's go. Don't attack first. Let's collect the demonic mirror fragments first. Huang Yi was wise. He did not plan to deal with Zhuowen directly. Instead, he arranged for the others to collect the demonic mirror fragments first. The number of demonic mirror fragments that Zhuowen had dug out was too shocking. Even if all of them worked together, it would still take them half a day. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. As soon as Huang Yi finished speaking, the others rushed out like a gust of wind and frantically collected the demonic mirror fragments in the huge pit. Huang Yi also joined the team in a frenzy. Zhuowen only glanced at Huang Yi's group and ignored them. Instead, he focused on collecting the fragments. The number of demonic mirror fragments that he had dug out was too shocking. He estimated that there were more than 100,000 of them. He just wanted to collect them as soon as possible. After all, the energy that erupted from so many demonic mirror fragments was very terrifying. It would definitely attract the attention of many cultivators in the surrounding worlds. If too many cultivators came, he would not be able to stop them all by himself. Since Huang Yi and the others were in the same group, Zhuowen did not feel bad about letting them collect a part of the demonic mirror fragments. He knew that after he was done collecting, he would find Huang Yi and the others to settle the score. They would not be able to escape. The group had a tacit understanding. They did not interfere with each other and collected the fragments quickly. Of course, Zhuowen was the fastest. Zhuowen's doppelganger was Devour. With Devour's innate devouring power, Huang Yi and the others could not collect the fragments in time. For hours later, the demonic mirror fragments in the huge pit were all collected into Zhuowen's great world. Zhuowen made a rough estimation and discovered that he had obtained a total of over 80,000 demon mirror fragments this time. Huang Yi and the rest should have collected close to 20,000 demon mirror fragments in total. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. At the same time, black shadows to the Great Yan's world. Clearly, some of the cultivators near the rock world were attracted by the demon mirror fragments in the giant pit. Huang our Huang studio of artist studio to the studio, our studio of the way studio of is our studio is our studio is. By Huang, he walked forward and looked at Zhuowen coldly. Hand over all the demonic mirror fragments you have. Then kneel on the ground and apologize to me. If you do that, I can consider sparing your worthless life and making you my lackey. You could try if you want me to apologize. If you can defeat me, I will apologize to you and be your lackey, Zhuowen said calmly. Huang Yi's eyes flickered. He did not attack, but took a few steps back. He had exchanged blows with Zhuo in the square before, and his right hand had been crippled by this fellow. He knew that if he attacked, he would be no match for this guy. He might even end up worse than before. Humph! How dare you be so arrogant when you are just the master of the heavenly law? I will teach you a lesson on behalf of the second prince. A man who was as thin as a bamboo pole behind Huang, he sneered. He glanced at Zhuo with disdain before shooting out like a cannonball towards Zhuo. Zhuo looked at him strangely. It seemed like this man had not heard of the feud between him and Huang Yi. After all, this man's cultivation was only at the peak of the Daoyuan Master Realm. Although he was stronger than Huang Yi, there was a limit to his strength. If this skinny man knew about the fight between Zhuo and Huang Yi, he would not have rushed forward alone. Zhuo simply did not care about such a clown. His right fist shot out and smashed into the man's arm. Immediately, the man miserably shrieked as a cluster of bloody mist erupted from his arm. He spat out a mouthful of blood and flew backwards. Zhuo took a step forward. As the man flew backward, he punched out again and hit the man's chest. A powerful force exploded and the man's chest caved in. Then, the man arched his body and a cloud of blood exploded from his back. In the end, the man screamed in pain and exploded into pieces. He was dead. Except for Huang Yi, everyone else was stunned. Obviously, they did not expect a mere heavenly Dao master to be so powerful that he could kill the skinny man at the peak of the Daoyuan Master Realm with a single punch. Huang Yi had wanted them to join forces because he knew Zhuo's strength was not simple. However, the skinny man was too impatient. He attacked before Huang Yi could say anything. By the time Huang Yi wanted to remind them, Zhuo had already killed the skinny man. Everyone be careful. This man is not simple. Let's kill him together and take the demon mirror fragment from him. Huang Yi quickly reminded them. Even without Huang Yi's reminder, the others had already joined forces and flew toward Zhuo after seeing the skinny man's tragic end. At the same time, before they arrived, various powerful attacks had already landed on Zhuo's body. These were all experts at the peak of the Daoyuan Master Realm. There was even an expert at the early stage of the Hunyuan Master Realm. Their combined attack was extremely terrifying. Even the experts at the intermediate and advanced stage of the Hunyuan Master Realm did not dare to take such a terrifying attack head-on. Although Zhuo was extraordinary, in their opinion, he was just a heavenly Dao master. Under such a joint attack, he would definitely die. Bang! 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 Suddenly, there was a crisp sound from the huge light ball in front of them. Immediately, the huge energy light ball was destroyed in an instant. A figure walked out slowly like a god or a demon. The attack of more than 10 of you is so weak. It's too trashy. Zhuo, who was like a god or a demon, walked out slowly and looked down at Huang Yi and the others who were already in a daze. Zhuo didn't speak any further. He took a step forward and shot out like an arrow that had left the bow, and he pierced through this group of people with extreme speed. The first person he came to was the lady in the red dress who had mocked him earlier. He threw out a punch that looked ordinary. However, the lady in the red dress retreated quickly as if she was avoiding the god of plague. Unfortunately, she was locked in place by Zhuo's killing intent, and it was useless for her to retreat. When she had nowhere else to retreat to, she gritted her teeth and took out a red brocade. It transformed into a red snake and suddenly shot out to meet Zhuo. However, it was a pity that Zhuo merely grabbed it and gently twisted it. The red brocade was casually torn apart by Zhuo. The lady in the red dress screamed as she felt the fear of death. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.